it's going to hurt? We will provide the researchers and whistleblowers. Your mission is to discern the truth from the MSN lies. And now for the interview portion of the Awake Nation. And awake we go with a shot of espresso. It's showtime.
All righty. Welcome back to the Awake Nation with Penny L.A. Shepard and David Zublick with you. Joining us now is Christi Tasker, ChristiTasker.com, PatriotsPerspective.com, and many other fantastic.
Thanks, David. Yeah, that's too many to list. We could be here all day.
But this is the thing now. It's Christmas right now. So you need to tell people about ChristiTasker.com and some of the great Christmas gifts you can get for the woman you love at that website.
Yes, you can. Everybody should go there, ChristiTasker.com. We ship internationally. So we ship, believe it or not, David, everywhere. We ship a lot of gifts to Europe, of course, throughout the United States and Canada. So if you're looking to send a gift to anybody, please go there. That is the way to support me. You can actually get something for your money. I'm not a grifter. I'm not trying to get you to send me money for no reason, for doing absolutely nothing. So yes, please go on and do your shopping there versus doing it with the globalists who often copy my designs.
Yes, I agree with you. ChristiTasker.com. So good stuff. Well, what's going on in the world of Christi Tasker right now that you want to tell our viewers today?
Well, David, we have a lot going on. You know, the globalists, they never stop. So right now we have a legislative session going on between Florida legislators and county legislators. So the biggest thing that I'm telling everybody that our legislators actually need to do, that's not on anybody's list, is basically create our own state currency with our own state banks so that we actually have our own state monies. Because I will assure you that our dollar is not going to be the same. And if you want the globalists to continue to run it, then you know what? Do absolutely nothing. Sit back with your thumb up your butt, sit on your sofa and pretend like nothing is going to happen, because it's about to happen, folks. And if you want, to have to have a chip in your hand to go to the grocery store to buy your groceries, then you know what? Just sit there and listen. Just remember that we told you so here on the Awake Nation. We're trying to wake you up. That's our goal here. And we must prepare for this global currency takeover. But we also have a huge opportunity within our own states to actually have our own state banks. And it's
now,
not
that's
very
interesting. Have other states considered that? And is the state of Florida in the process of considering that?
Well, you know what, David? Freedom Florida should be first on the map, right? But instead, we have, believe it or not, Tennessee is actually has drafted some legislation for it. I have not heard anything come out of our Florida legislators who don't seem to really be on the know of it. However, I am informing them. I'm writing them a letter along with our county legislators who are often, that's the double government here in Miami, the city of Miami. If you live in the city of Miami, you have a double government called the county government. If you live in non-incorporated Dade, that is your government. That is your real government. But if you live in the city or any other city in which Miami-Dade County is also your government, that is considered double government per the Constitution. So we'll see if those people actually listen or not. So that is going to be something very interesting that's going to be coming up. But when it comes to what we all need to do to be prepared is basically just let your legislators know they should follow Tennessee. They should draft legislation to create our own state banks. This is not out of the ordinary, everybody. Okay. This just got taken over when the Federal Reserve, it was a fake Federal Reserve, just like we have a fake IRS, and the fake IRS is actually operating out of, guess where? Puerto Rico. So for the crown. So if you want to continue to pay the crown and you want to continue to pay Charles for all of his travels and being the globalist puppeteer that he is, even his own mother didn't want him to take over. All you got to do is watch The Crown on Netflix and you might actually learn the truth. I mean, on some of this, they're telling you right there in front of your face. Just like, it's kind of funny, David. Have you guys watched The Crown at all yet?
I have not, but
I don't think so. I can't recall.
It's funny because
Okay.
we went to London, as you know, back in October, and we really had a great time there, better than we did in Paris, actually. And we enjoyed it so much that we decided to start studying British history. And one of the things we're going to do is go and watch The Crown and some of these other British historical dramas, and kind of enjoy that. So yeah, we're planning on doing that.
Okay, so let me give you the order in which you guys should watch things. Okay, so these were all on Netflix at some state. It's not like I'm sitting around watching television all the time. These have been on air for a very long time. So I first started watching Reign. Okay, so it's Reign, then The Tudors, but you really should start with The Tudors and then go to Reign. Okay, so those are the story of King Henry VIII. So King Henry VIII, listen, everybody wants to stop watching The Tudors in the very beginning. You cannot stop watching. Listen, if you need to fast forward through the sex scenes, and watching the orgies, I completely understand it. I didn't really want to watch that part either, and that is how it starts off. But the truth is, there's a lot of truth inside The Tudors. Okay, they're telling you exactly what they're doing, going from rewriting the Bible to everything that you're going to see is the truth. Or not everything, I should say everything, but a lot of what you're going to see is the truth of what they need to relinquish to you. And that is, the rewriting of the Bible, how it came to be, what Henry VIII did, how the crown has evolved, and then go into watching Reign. Reign is a beautiful love story, but actually, The Tudors can be very vulgar. Most men, I would say, probably really like The Tudors, where Reign is much more of a love story about Mary, Queen of Scots, because everybody needs to understand this British history, because this is what we're living under right now. We're literally living under the crown. Okay.
Didn't you tell me that Mary, Queen of Scots was misunderstood?
Which one?
Mary, Queen of Scots.
Yes, very much misunderstood. Absolutely. So I really started to research it. My mom and I both did when we kept going to Scotland, and, she lived in Scotland for a while. My mother-in-law was from Scotland and lived there. So obviously we were frequenting Scotland, and my mom was there for about 6 months. We go over to Edinburgh, where J.K. Rowling actually wrote the books. She claims to have written the books there in Edinburgh. And it is very true that, a lot of the castles and a lot of the looks of things come from Edinburgh and Glasgow. So, for instance, Harry Potter comes from Glasgow. I mean, that was filmed in University of Glasgow. So a lot of this history and a lot of even what our kids are viewing come directly from the crown itself. Okay, so we need to be very mindful of this, pay attention to it, because they're telling us exactly what's happening, who's had control of the entire world. And
well, it is the banking capital. We have the Vatican, we have Washington, D.C., and we have London. And those are and we still belong to the British crown. People don't understand that. We never really associated ourselves. Now, is it legal for states to start their own banks and currencies, or is there some kind of
It is. It's absolutely. What they have done is illegal, David.
Well, yeah, I know that, but what I mean is, in their view, I mean, is there anything to stop a state?
Well, of course they're going to try to stop it. What did they try to do? I mean, so President Kennedy, wanted to stop it. We had multiple presidents wanting to stop it. We have supposedly President Trump, that the Queen capitulated to President Trump. I mean, that's still up for grabs. Listen, I know that there's a lot of videos out there, and it does show him walking in front of the Queen. However, I have found other videos of the Queen allowing people to walk in front of them. There are some people that say she was very nice. Cisco Wheeler, who was part of the Illuminati, says that the Queen was not nice, that, the Queen was actually high-level Illuminati witch. So it really depends on what you want to believe there. However, if you just look at both sides, they are telling you there is an ounce of truth in the middle. And with this new season of The Crown that's come out is all about Princess Di. So who told us a lot about the Crown and who absolutely would not capitulate to them? Princess Di. She wanted no part of it. She was not going to go along to get along. She even says that. She even said that in her interviews. So if we just right, most likely. So it's very interesting. I want everybody to pay attention in The Crown. When you watch this last season of The Crown, I want you to watch Dodi Fayed asking the princess to marry him. And she said no. According to The Crown, okay? She said no. But how do we really, considering they never talked to anyone else? And when he did call his father, he told his father that they were engaged.
Yeah.
Okay. But no, he told him, excuse me, he didn't say that we were engaged. He says, we have come to an agreement. Well, supposedly, according to the movie, they had to come to an agreement, which was not to get engaged. However, we don't really know because his father was the only person that he talked to. Even my own husband, I said, honey, how do we really know? It even shows in the movie, they did not talk to anyone else. And he goes, you know what? You're right. We don't really know. And I said, no, we will never really know unless Dodi Fayed and Princess Diana are alive. Who is right? Who is wrong? We've got the Muslim, we've got the Christian girl. Like, what is it supposed to be? So, those things are up for interpretation. And we always have to look at, who is feeding us this information, right? Who are the producers? Who are the executive producers? What channels aired it? Who are behind those channels? Who put up the money for it? Who wrote the story? Okay. Because all of these are stories. So just pay attention, but it is entertaining. It is good to watch. And actually it is a little bit of an eye opener to the point where even my husband, who, is British, will say, you know what? Okay, you're right on that. I said, so, if you want to say that this happened, that is a conspiracy theory. Okay, that is a conspiracy theory. Yeah. But if you can be open-minded enough to go, is this real or is it not? Then we can actually have a conversation. Just like Wano Savit said this week, and the reason I'm bringing up these two things is because there were two different narratives in our grocery store. In the Miami grocery stores, we had the Princess Di death magazine, like a full coverage of this magazine of her whole death. Okay. I think that magazine was like $30. Okay. And then right next to it, we have JFK death, the 60-year anniversary death. Right. It was almost comical because it was like a last ditch effort to try to get out the narrative of the story that they want you to believe. Okay. Because it is not according to what Wano Savin has told us. So what we do know from Wano Savin is that President Trump actually withheld part of the JFK assassination materials. Why did he withhold it? Because he found out information for a fact, 100%, that there was somebody behind the JFK assassination that the world would go absolutely berserky over. What does the world go absolutely berserky over? Anybody want to say it?
A lot of things. I'm really tell us.
What do you think it goes berserky over, David? What does the world? What does everybody try to get? Like, if you say it, I'm going to say it, and everybody's going to say she's an anti-Semite.
Okay. So
yes.
Okay.
What we know.
Actually, Christy, because I interviewed James Falls, who I believe actually was the Grassy Knoll shooter. I believe him. And Roger Stone wrote a book on this. So I bought Roger's book. I'm in the process of reading it, but behind it, and I also played a video when Susie came on about who was actually behind it. And Jack Ruby's actual name was Jacob Rubenstein.
Right.
Yep.
So yes, we're talking about an elitist. It actually went to Israel. to tell you the
Yes.
truth,
Yes.
because JFK was very confounded in his negotiations with Israel, and he said he feared for them having nuclear weaponry, and the year after he died, they did have it. So I would entreat everyone to purchase James Fowles' book, Primary Target. I believe that he actually is the grassy knoll killer, that JFK, in combination with orders from LBJ, who was an extremely evil individual, who Susie knew, Lady Bird. She used to come into the saddle shop. It's a convoluted construct that has been hidden for very many years. And I think with adequate pursuit of it, on our Thursday show, our Thanksgiving show, we showed James Fetzer, who has spoken at JFK for years. He also, on his 911 Scholars, which he created, Jim Mars was a member. And Jim Mars, as you know, wrote Crossfire, which was the basis for Oliver Stone's JFK. So if you really want to know the truth, pursue it. And I also encourage you to get Roger Stone's book in combination with Roger Stone's and James Fowles' book, and then watch our videos, our Thanksgiving special at awakenation.tv. I think you'll come to a very good understanding of who was behind it. And then also Susie's show, I played a video stating exactly what you're saying, Christy, which I found on Instagram. It was a very illuminating video, and that would be on the last segment on last Friday's show with Susie Q, who is going to be having her own show on the Dark Outpost. Also, Hot Shots is her segment.
Yeah, your intro to that, Penny, was amazing, by the way. I love it.
Well, I know we're talking here about you're talking about the Jewish supposedly, ruling the world, and we're talking about the Rothschilds, and we're talking about Zionism. But again, I don't consider that anti-Semitism, although a lot of people do.
No, but
Right.
people
Talking about the Zionists.
Those are not the real Jews; they're Khazarians.
No. Yes.
Nobody, I believe, most people don't hate real Jewish people. These are fake Jews.
Yeah, they are fake. Yeah, they're
absolutely
fake.
Concur.
They've claimed to be Jewish. They're not. Matter of fact, Penny, we were going back and putting covers on some of the shows. Like there was a show that you and I did a long time ago, David. I think you were on vacation or something. But if people go back and look at it, we did a whole show, and the news had come out from Japan that the real Jews had come forth in Japan saying the Khazarian mafia had taken them over. Benjamin Fulford actually brought that forward. So, listen, don't shoot the messenger, just look into it, because I think
that's what we're talking about is the Khazarian mafia, because James Fowles worked indeed with the actual mafia, and then there's a Khazarian mafia, and there's also the Jewish mafia, which people are not apprised of, and that is the Zionists.
Well, this is what Juan O'Slavin said on a recent interview. He said, either you're going to you go in and take over your local government, you run, so people know you, they know who you are, because that's the way governments used to be. There wasn't a politician. A politician wasn't really a thing. It was you take part in your local government as a civic duty, not as a position, not as a. Now we basically have people I hear kids graduating saying that they want to be a politician. Well, how are they going to know what law? No, I'm serious. This is in high school.
They want to be a politician because they think that there's money in it. But the actual politician, the real politicians, are really true servants of the people, not like the TV show that Zelensky had, where he was a comedian and he called himself servant of the people, and then the comedian in Servants of the People gets elected the president, which that was an orchestration to favor votes for him to become president.
Right. And I say this because, you know what, we have the same problem in Miami as a whole. Like in general, we've had the Khazarian mafia try to come in and take over, and they've bought up all these properties. They have paid for people to be in government. We have to watch out for these people. Like, we have to watch out. This is a treasonous act on the United States of America whenever they are not protecting our borders. That is one way that we actually know who these people are, what they're doing, if they're taking stand down orders, if they're taking money from the fraudulent government and doing absolutely nothing about it. Notice none of our Congress are saying that we need to set up a new monetary system, because we've realized it's run by globalists. I mean, come on. If you and I know this, don't think that they don't know it, but they're all just on the take. So when we were told that 90% of our government, we would not even recognize it in 4 to 5 years, I think that was meant in a good way, because people are waking up to the fact that a lot of these people, we have a lot of actors and bad actors within our government. And these people are being paid. They think they are the new version of an influencer. I mean, I know, like, you've got to realize your kids, they want to be a politician. Your kids want to be an influencer, and they don't have anything to influence on because they have no skill set whatsoever. They don't have any jobs. They have not been encouraged to go out and work. So how in the world are they going to be able to actually work for you in your community? They're not. They think sitting behind a desk, punching a few keys is the way to work. Well, listen, I mean, everybody can do that portion, but the reality is there's got to be somebody that actually goes out and picks up the trash and does it well, you know? So
they're looking at it from a different perspective. They're looking at it from being an influencer, and they're not looking at it from actually helping people.
Well, they don't, Penny, they have to learn how to help people. I mean, number one, you have to have some experience.
Well, they are influencing people. They're influencing them on how to be lazy.
Right. Exactly.
The problem,
they're giving them no real life experience. I mean,
it's more of a look at me thing than an actual person that wants to help.
Yes, exactly. It certainly is. So hopefully we can turn that around. That's, you know, and I see a lot of these people, because people wonder, like, how do I know this? Because I have a site called Design Rockstars. So you can go to designrockstars.com and you can see a lot of the people and businesses and things that I've helped. And I also have a lot of business owners who have me coach their children, because they are like so out of touch and out of tune for how you actually get where you've gotten, like, as a whole. So, you know, they're looking at me. I'm one of the oldest, like, digital influencers that there is. Like, I mean, from like 2006.
And you're still very young. And you're still very young.
It wasn't intentional though, David. It was not intentional, because I was using social media to communicate with my clients.
Right.
So I was actually showing my work. So, you know, it was a lot easier for me to show my work that I was doing, and that, hey, I'm alive with your $1 million that you gave me last week, and I'm working on your project, than it was to take phone call after phone call after phone call, because they would realize, like, oh yeah, okay, she's working on a project. I don't need to call her and ask her, is she working on the project? So, you know, that is something that is, you know, it's just a very interesting way to look at things. But I'm like, what are these people going to influence anybody on? Well, look at TikTok and you'll find out, and see if you're entertained by their videos, because I assure you I'm not entertained by them, because they're basically using the Chinese Communist Party tools to replicate each other, which AI can easily do. I mean, if you can't believe that, I mean, just look at some of the overlays that are available. I mean, they can literally make these people look like people that they're not. So imagine what you're going to get, like, if we don't wake up and teach these kids something, maybe delist them out of school, homeschool them, help your neighbors school their children. There's actually a group of moms here that have invited me in to help them teach their children actually how to do things, just basic things, you know, how to do some of the things that I know how to do, so that they will actually have real skill sets and not, pretend skill sets.
That's fantastic. All right, we're running out of time, but one more time, let's talk about your websites and where everybody can go to get some help. And
so that's actually how I know about everything, all of this too, David, is from ChristiTasker.com, from manufacturing, from designing, from hearing stories of manufacturers. So if you want to go there, see it, ChristiTasker.com. We have earrings, necklaces, home goods. We even have vintage finds that we do not let go to the trash or to Goodwill, directly from some of the Palm Beach mansions that we decorate. So please make sure you go there to ChristiTasker.com. Yes, we rescue everything, Penny.
You design furniture too.
Yes, I design furniture, wall coverings, so custom wall coverings. I do a lot of designs for other interior designers, as well as websites for taskeragency.com. We do a lot of websites for other interior designers. I actually love working with other interior designers and supporting them, because I know what it's like not to have somebody to fulfill those needs when you are out in projects. And I only do huge projects now, so
and then also you're starting Banana Republic News, which we look forward to having you also on the Dark Outpost with that news segment. And I will definitely be, available to you to help you out with that news.
Absolutely, Penny. I look forward to it, because you know a lot about Miami, and it's very interesting, some of the things that we find. I said that's the news that ought not be, but it's real.
Right.
Thank you guys so much.
We thank you, and go to ChristiTasker.com, folks. And Patriots Perspective.com also has a lot of very valuable, good news information. So please, and we look forward to having you back. Have a great week, Christi.
Thank you so much, David. Take care.
Thank you.
God bless you, Penny. Great interviews, Penny. Great intros, Penny.
She does the best with that. I will tell you. Let's see. We're going to have another segment coming up in just a moment with the great Gary Wayne, author of the Genesis 6 Conspiracy. I do want to remind you that we have an extension on the BOGO, the buy one, get one sale from our good friends over at Numi through midnight Mountain Time tonight. It was supposed to end last night, but they extended it one more day. Buy any one product from Numi, including their famous NutraSwish glutathione, and you can get one free. Get the skin spray, get one free. All right. We are going to be gone. Where's the Christmas promo? I got to find the Christmas promo.
It's at the top of everything.
I see it. Okay. All right. So we're gonna take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have Gary Wayne. We're gonna remind you, going to be off for a few days, beginning Friday, and you'll be back on Thursday of the following week. But between now and then, we're here. So here's what's going to be happening when we're gone.
The Awake Nation, the co-host David Zublick and Penny Shepard, welcomes December. Get out your pens, mark your calendars, and save these dates. The following are the Awake Nation December vacation dates. The Awake Nation will be on vacation Friday, December 1st, 2023 through Wednesday, December 6th, 2023. The Awake Nation will return Thursday, December 7th, 2023. While you're at it, get out your pens, save these dates. Awake Nation will also be on vacation Monday, December 24th through Wednesday, December 27th, returning Thursday, December 28th through Friday, December 29th. Now save these dates too. The Awake Nation will also be on vacation Monday, January 1, 2024, and we will return Tuesday, January 2nd, 2024. That's our December calendar. Please save those dates. On behalf of the Awake Nation, with co-host David Zublick and Penny Shepard, we wish you safe and happy holidays. And season's greetings from the Awake Nation.
All right, we're back. And now it's time to bring in our next guest, the fabulous author of the Genesis 6 Conspiracy, his website, Genesis, the number 6conspiracy.com. And that, of course, would be Gary Wayne. How are you, Gary?
Doing well, and happy to be back with you today.
Did you have a nice, well, you have, you're Canadian, so you already had your Canadian Thanksgiving in October.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
Anyway, hopefully we're coming closer to the holidays. One of the things I thought we might talk about today is, and I thought I would do this now as opposed to maybe the time that you join us just before Christmas, and that's this. We're getting close to December 25th, which, as everybody knows, we celebrate here in the United States and many other parts of the world as the birth of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. But in actuality, more and more indications are that he was not born on that date. However, there are some interesting things with solstices and everything else going on around that time that leads one to believe that perhaps that time of the year is not a sacred time, but perhaps more of a satanic time. And I was wondering if you wanted to possibly address that today.
Sure. So I think the first thing, I want to say is celebrate the birth of Christ on any day of the year.
Every day. Yes. Yes.
And so we shouldn't get too caught up on birthdays. We're not provided birthdays of Jesus in the Bible or sort of other patriarchs. We're told more of the time that they died as opposed to a specific day. So we want to be careful there. But we do have a day that is set aside, which is December 25, which is kind of totally at odds with information that we would have in the Bible as to when Jesus was born. And what I mean by that is that you have a day where we're celebrating, and the details are Mary and Joseph are on their way to Jerusalem for a census. And there's no room in the hotel because of the census, but there's room in the stables.
Right.
And so that means that all of the, or most of the animals, the lambs and the goats and whatever they're herding are out into the fields. And that's why you have the angels out in the fields that are announcing the birth of Christ. The problem with that is December 25 is the rainy season. So the animals would not be out in the fields. They would be in the stables, and there would be no room in the stables. And so it's not in line or in sync with the seasons. And what is more in line with the dates and the seasons where, from the biblical details that we get, would be somewhere in September to early October, and probably more likely mid-September to maybe the first week of October. And some people even get a little bit more precise, but we don't have the exact date anyways, but I think we do get the seasons. So, and we don't have within the ancient traditions of Judaism and Israel a feast or a festival that's assigned for December 25 either. Although you could look at one of the Judean festivals or celebrations that come out of the time in Babylon, but it's not one of the holy feasts. So how do we get to December 25? Is it just arbitrarily decided, or is there more to it? Well, it goes back to the time of the moving up of Christianity to the state religion in Rome. So say in about 314 BC or AD, I'm sorry. Before that, you didn't have a celebration of Christmas at December 25. You would have celebrated the Passover as a Christian, and you would probably be more likely to celebrate all of the feasts of God up till that point in time. But with the Romanization of the Christian church, there's going to be a movement to do a homogenization of religions, because Constantine wants to do what was done in Persia, not that long before, where Zoroastrianism was the state religion that united Persia. And what's interesting is December 25 is the birth date of somebody named Mithra. And Mithra is one of the gods of Mithraism, or Mithraism, as some people would also pronounce it, which was one of the most popular polytheist religions in Rome at the time, and particularly with the army. And Mithraism is a branch of Zoroastrianism. And in each of those religions, the name of the god is the great architect of the universe. The same god that is called by Lucifer also in the Gnostic religions. So you see a connection between Gnosticism, Mithraism, and Zoroastrianism as you take that back into history. And so that's the date that is taken to pacify many of the Romans who aren't Christians, because he just wants a religion to unite the empire. And December 25 is part of a series of dates that are all sort of polytheist that gets mixed into the Christmas mythos. So within the days of Christmas, most people are familiar with the 12 days of Christmas.
Yes.
Well, that goes back to the Norse pantheon. And is, kin to the other polytheist lines, but these are the hunting days of Odin, and this is a festival to the Norse gods for 12 days. You have the December 21st solstice, which is one of the more important festivals within that period. That's going to finish with the end of the year, which has more polytheist festivals. And so when you look at let's say from December 31 back about 12 days, you're going to go back to, about December 19th. Some people will take it back to the 17th. You have this festival that is designed not for Christianity, but you have a celebration so that the whole empire can sort of participate in a festive season, but none of it is biblically based. So when we look at celebrating Christmas, and I'm not here to say not to have fun at Christmas and make it a good time.
Like you said, you can celebrate, since we don't have an exact date, we can anticipate, as you said, around mid-September, late September, but you can celebrate it any day. So using December 25th is okay, as long as you understand that there's also some other evil things surrounded with that time of the year too.
Exactly. So much of the imagery that we use around the Christmas celebration isn't Christian either. No. You take, and they're trying to make that less and less and less. So, I mean, you have the Christmas story with Santa and the elves. Well, elves is right out of polytheism. Right. And you get a whole bunch of other sort of dark kind of legends that also come with the Santa Claus legend as well. So all I try and tell Christians to do is understand the polytheist sort of invasion of the Christian celebration. And if we want to celebrate, and I celebrate Christmas, but only for family and only for the worship of Christ, and try and keep it as simple as possible. So just try and focus on what is really important for a Christian at Christmas, and not get caught into mistletoe and all of these other traditions that are out there, which all have polytheist roots and are all part of rituals. Stay away from the ritualistic aspect of Christmas.
Right. And there's a lot of that people do not understand. Now, some within the context of Christianity have associated the concept of Santa Claus with a Saint Nicholas who allegedly, gave gifts to people or something along that line. I say, well, that's what that was based on. I don't know much about that. I mean, I've looked up St. Nicholas, but I don't know how much he can be really associated with Christmas. And then I've actually seen paintings depicting this figure of Santa Claus as being rather evil in some cases. Yeah. One of him, he has a little child tied to a tree, and he's about to hit him with an axe. Like there was, if you were good, you got gifts. If you were bad, there's also this theory of someone called Krampus or something, which is you want to go into some of these legends, these myths?
Yeah. So, I mean, you have these legends, and what happens with Krampus, you have the abduction of children.
Right.
And they're taken into the other world or into hell. And yeah, these are very, very dark. And, you have, Santa Claus, but he is not really based on the gifting of a saint that was doing gifts in around Christmas. It goes back to that evil sort of legend of Krampus and these evil elves that work with them. And these are the dark ones. And so in polytheism, you have what they call the white hats and the dark hats. And this is sort of from the dark hats of that belief system. And so it's very similar to kind of the end of the celebrations of All Hallows Eve as you sort of connect that in.
Yes,
and
that too. This Krampus character almost sounds like something more out of the Halloween and the All Hallows Eve legends than it does being associated with Christmas.
Now, Krampus is more of a godlike figure, Father Christmas. Father as in the God of the Bible, as it likes to be sort of overlaid with some Christian veneer. And he's riding a sleigh, or let's say a northern allegory of a chariot.
Right.
And he has reindeer, and they fly. Right? Well, that's very similar to the unicorn horses that are pulling the chariots of Zeus or Apollo or the Greek gods. And of course, in some of them with the unicorn, they have the single horn that's attached to them as well. And in the occult, that is like a angelic kind of being. And in that sort of thought, they are ones that provide knowledge to the world. And that unicorn, that single horn, is like that eye to that knowledge, and it comes through those beings and into the world. And that this is a watcher being, an allegory for a watcher being. And so biblically, that's sort of understood in Ezekiel 1, 3, and 10, where you have God's chariot in the vision of Ezekiel. That is being pulled by cherubim, and just as the book of Psalms talks about. So in the occult, that's like the throne of the parent God, and providing gifts and things to his people of the world, and showing sort of the legal ownership of it. And that the unicorn would be the allegory for the cherubim, and you've got Zeus or Santa Claus or a Norse god type of imagery of a god sitting in that chariot, going all through the world and distributing his gifts once a year. Much of those gifts is supposed to be knowledge, and it's supposed to be magic, and it's supposed to be all things associated with the occult. So this is sort of, when you look at it now, when you take your child up to this godlike character on this big throne-like chair to visit Santa Claus to sit on his lap, you get a whole sort of different understanding what that ritual is all about. So this goes into layers and layers and layers over millennia of polytheism, and it has nothing to do with Christianity.
Interesting. Now let's take this thing a step further, and that would be, the other holidays that are associated with Christianity, such as the resurrection and the crucifixion of Christ, as taking place in the spring months, March, April. That's when we celebrate that. I think you said earlier in the conversation something about Passover. Was Passover celebrated in December at some point, and not in the spring, or?
No, it was always celebrated in the spring.
Okay.
But Passover would be one of those holy feasts that God had set down that Christians would celebrate. But there's no one, that's set down in the holy feasts in the Christmas period. Certainly the Jewish people celebrate, the Festival of Lights and things in December. So, but there isn't one that goes back to the holy feasts.
Well, I guess my question is, do we know approximately when Christ was crucified? And number two, why is it that they put a fixed date on Christmas, such as December 25th, and yet Easter varies according to the position of the moon or something? And I've never understood why they didn't take a specific, say the first Sunday of April will always be Resurrection Sunday or Easter.
So traditionally, Passover is celebrated in the first month of spring, and it is set against a lunar calendar, which is why you have an association with the moon. But what happens within the Romanization of the church, you get a change to a solar calendar, and then a change to the dates of the year. So you don't have the date of Passover or Easter. They don't end up being celebrated on the same day. They may be sometimes closely related.
Yeah, very close. Sometimes, and other times not at all.
Yeah. So what happened with the Roman churches is that they took that and took the timing for the crucifixion and realigned it, but not on the lunar calendar, or as the Jewish people would celebrate Passover. So we know the crucifixion happened at the time of Passover by the details. It happens in conjunction. We should be looking to celebrate Passover based on Easter based on the Passover event, based on the Jewish lunar calendar, as opposed to the solar calendar that things are lined up. So that's why it doesn't sort of align. And so that's going to move around a little bit based on our 12-month solar calendar, right? It just has to. But what I always found interesting is that you have in the Christian celebration of the crucifixion, you have a Good Friday. Yeah. And again, that goes at odds with the details in Scripture. So if you put all four Gospels together, you can get sort of a better chronology, but you also need to understand the holy feasts of God. So you have the Passover event that happens, and then it's followed by the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Now, what's interesting is, as a side detail in Acts 12:4, you have the Feast of Unleavened Bread in 12:3, and then you have Easter in the next verse in 12:4. And Easter is a polytheist word substituted for Pascha in Greek for Passover in Hebrew. And people say, well, that's because the Jewish people were polytheist at that time. Well, that makes no sense, because it's sort of not very long after the crucifixion, and they're celebrating the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So why were they celebrating one if they're polytheist but not the other? So that doesn't make any sense from that sort of perspective. But there's details in how those two holy feasts come together. Is immediately after Passover and at the beginning of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, there is a special Sabbath. And so if you put that into the mix, and you put into the details in the mix that Jesus said the sign for that generation would be the sign of Noah, of his coming, and that they missed him, and that Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the fish. So would Jesus be 3 days and 3 nights in the grave? Well, Friday, Saturday, Sunday doesn't give you the math.
I know, that was my next question.
So let me just sort of finish it. So if you look at, he had to be taken down from the Passover, from the cross after he died, in time for the Passover starting in the evening, and goes to the evening of the next day. So you have now a special Sabbath, and then the regular Sabbath, and then the Sunday, you start to get the math. So now you're going to have 3 days and 3 nights in the grave. And because the Roman Church sort of threw out everything in relationship to the Holy Feast, and sort of in that homogenization started to align things, they started to align things with dates that would be more equivalent to the celebration of the spring festivals and Easter as it's related to. That's why you get all of the polytheist imagery again associated, like Easter eggs. That's a fertility thing. Easter is Ishtar, Ashtart, Ashtaroth, transliterations of the mother goddess. And so, but we just need to sort of look back and say that Jesus was Judean, and everything was happening according at that time to the Holy Feast. So if we understand that, we don't get things mixed up. But it's still amazing to me that the church doesn't understand that there was an extra Sabbath that was in there. But yet if they had been celebrating the Holy Feast as, being part of the new covenant, you would think that you would also be celebrating, just as Jesus did, just as the disciples did, and just as the apostles did, and just as the early Christian church did. None of that would have been glossed over.
Right.
But Friday gets into part of the homogenation of being a very important day in polytheism as well. So it's all sort of wrapped into that homogenization.
Now, we have a guest, and Penny, I want to bring you in on this if you could, and kind of go over what Susie said about her beliefs with regard to Jesus. There are many, almost universally, people believe that the man, Jesus of Nazareth, did exist. There is enough evidence to indicate that such a man walked the earth. We as Christians, myself, yourself, Penny, accept Jesus Christ as the Son of God and as our Lord and Savior, and we accept that. But even those who don't acknowledge that such a man did walk the earth, and there are some who believe that he did not die on the cross, that either the death was faked, it never took place, he escaped somehow, was freed by his disciples or something, and continued his mission. And we have all been led to believe that he was crucified, died on the cross, and then rose again from the dead. And those who question the validity of that say, well, why didn't he then appear to everyone when he was resurrected, instead of just a certain few who could then come out and say, yeah, I saw him. Well, okay, you saw him, but so Penny, do I have what Susie believes correct?
I think herein would be the dilemma that she's presenting. Let's just say he did die on the cross and he did rise again. Where is he now? Is he an everlasting? Does he have everlasting life? And is he an eternal being? And is he walking the planet now?
So what we are told about Jesus after his resurrection and after witnessing to over 500 people, he ascends in the book of Acts to heaven to sit at the right hand of God. Right. And in the book of Revelation, we have him sitting there as well. So, and he ascends in his body. It's something new that is happened at this point in time. So much so that even the fallen angels didn't know about the resurrection. And it says in the book of Corinthians that had they known, they wouldn't have had him sacrificed. So is he sitting there now? Yes, he's sitting there now. And could he at any point in time come down and visit? Sure, he could. He can do pretty much anything that he wants. Jesus is the Jehovah of the Elohim in Hebrew, not totally sort of understood, I think, as it properly should be. And the Elohim includes all three: El, the Father, the Holy Spirit, Ruach, and Jehovah. So you get all three in Genesis 1, for example, where God said, that's the Hebrew word amar, that is spoke, that's the word of God. So in the New Testament, we get the word of God. In the Old Testament, we get Jehovah of God, when he's understood in the singular. So he actually manifested himself in a physical being before Jesus in the angel of the Lord, the Malach of Jehovah, as in the burning bush. And he's the one that is dealing directly with Israel and all of the patriarchs personally. It's not Elohim, it's Jehovah of the Elohim, or just Jehovah in singular. And he also manifests himself as Melchizedek, who has no genealogy. So he is this eternal being. He's the first of creation, as the book of Proverbs talks about, in Colossians, whom through God's command creates all things, as the word of God, as the book of John. So he is an Alpha Omega, and described as Alpha Omega, like the Father in the book of Revelation. So, but in the creation of Jesus, he's doing something different. All angels can create a physical oiketerion, a dwelling place for the spirit to interact physically in the world, just as we see angels in the book of Genesis, along with the angel of the Lord visiting Abraham. And then two of them go on to Sodom and Gomorrah. And at first, Abraham doesn't even recognize the angels as angels, but then understands that they are, and they eat and they drink. And we also have another account in the book of Hebrews in chapter 13, where we're instructed to be nice to strangers, lest we run across an angel, because we can't tell the difference. And that's a soul and a
I've
body.
Actually quoted that a whole lot, because that's the truth. You never know. I've given to homeless people my entire life, because I said, there but by the grace of God go I, and I actually ended up homeless. So you never know if you're entreating angels. Please be kind to everyone.
Absolutely. And that's the soul and the body of the physical world, that the spirit merges with that as the oiketerion. So as the creator of the world at God's command, the Holy Spirit is going to enter into Mary to create an oiketerion, the dwelling place for Jesus to be made flesh, so that there's no sex involved. And it is something that's developed within Mary, and then that soul in the body is what the spirit of Jehovah becomes flesh in, as the word of God, so that there is no, as I said, there's no copulation as angels would create giants, right? There should be it should be something different than it is. And so you have him absolutely as this eternal being, and he creates this new body of the resurrection that we will receive as part of our resurrection, that can go into heaven or other dimensions, which angels have to actually create those bodies in the physical world. So it's something new that we're going to receive on that. So if there is one that's walking around the earth that's sort of eternal, you could maybe look at two individuals that maybe people might confuse with Jesus, but I would look at Lazarus as being raised, and we're all destined to suffer a death, but he raises Lazarus, so he could be around in the end time, and he possibly might be even the disciple that Jesus loved. And at the end of the book of John, the disciples are saying, what about this disciple? And Jesus is sort of rebuking them and saying, what is it to you if I want him to live until I come again? So you have some individuals that might be sort of conflated with that Jesus might still be here as possibilities. But the disciples understood, and Jesus answered to them, what will be the signs of the end time and of your coming?
Right.
So that says, and as he said, I am leaving and I'm going to send the Holy Spirit, but he is coming back, but there's a set time for that. So I understand all of the sort of narratives where people will say, well, Jesus wasn't the Son of God. He was just a prophet. That is a typical Gnostic sort of approach. And there are Gnostic Christians. And there are people who, particularly in the Gnostics, say, well, he didn't die on the cross. He wasn't on there long enough. And you get sort of odd passages in the New Testament where even Pilate is surprised that Jesus has died so quickly.
Didn't they have these people hanging normally for days?
Yes.
Now, the other question would be, but wasn't Christ, according to what we've been taught, crucified differently than normal crucifixions? My understanding was always that everyone's wrists were tied, but he was the only one who was nailed to the cross. Would that not explain him bleeding out and dying more quickly?
Yeah, that's one of the possibilities. And if you're into the wrists as opposed to the hands, which is where they were typically nailed, and other people were nailed as well, but typically, they were bound. I mean, you're going to get more bleeding and stuff, but he was beaten
savagely
before he went. So he was already weakened, and he also had a spear that was jabbed into him as well from his side. So, he could have also been bleeding to death as well. But he did die more quickly than what would have been a slow sort of almost strangulation or suffocating as what would happen in its typical kind of crucifixion. But he was verified as being dead by the Roman soldiers, who allowed him to be taken down and not left up, so not to desecrate the body, and that the Jewish people could move on with the Passover ceremony. And there's nothing in history that disputes that aspect of it. They just say that he wasn't dead when he was taken down. But the Romans were very thorough on these things. Right? And the centurions were. I mean, there was serious implications if they got that wrong. So they would not have taken him down unless he was already dead.
Right. They would have made sure that he stayed up there until they knew.
Yep.
So I guess the next question would be: is in your estimation, and from what you have studied, and I mentioned this to you, I think one or two times when you've been on the program in the past, but why do you think that Jesus only appeared to certain people, like you said, about 500 people after his resurrection, as opposed to coming out and showing all of the people, including those who put him to death, that he was alive and that he had defeated us and that he was indeed the Son of God?
Yeah, it's part of the mystery of God that is, going to be fully revealed and understood as we get closer to the end time. And part of that mystery is that you have names that are written in a book of life from before creation, and that everybody will have an opportunity to have their name removed or blotted out, or to keep it in there. So there's a certain time that this has to play out. So that's part of it. There is, as he's announced in the Old Testament, he's going to be a light to the Gentiles. And so this has to be spread into the Gentiles, and in a way that people are going to choose Christianity as opposed to it being imposed on them. So more of what happens in the Jerusalem church than with the Roman church, where you're going to role model and people are going to want to be like Christians. And so you have to have this message being delivered, and that's why Paul is selected for that. He becomes the messenger to the Gentiles, and then it's going to be a Gentile church after the fall of Jerusalem in 70 AD, as opposed to the Jerusalem church. So you need to understand as well that, or I think people need to also put into the context as well, as probably a better way of saying it, is that they're Alpha Omega, and they're letting everything happen through free choice. And that you could have Jesus being meeting people all around the world and millions of people, and that they're still not going to accept that message. And certainly by a generation later, they won't accept it. So you're building something that's going to be in place, and you're also allowing people through free choice to make those decisions. So yes, would all of us would have liked that to have been, that's the case, that we're going to set up the kingdom of God before that? Well, there's also all of the other prophecies that are laid down that have to be fulfilled, and that there's the only intercession God and Jesus are going to have is to make sure there was the ability to have the redemption of humankind's sins with the sacrifice of Jesus. And if the people of Judah and Israel had fulfilled the Holy Covenant, we would have had a whole different history. But God knew that they wouldn't. So we're having all of the covenant being fulfilled, which includes the end time, through the curses of the covenant, as opposed to the blessings of the covenant. And so that all gets reconciled in the end time, even with the reconciliation of Israel and Judah in the last 3.5 years into the covenant, and in time for the supper of the Lamb. So it's just sort of letting humankind save themselves, and the other ones convicting themselves. And it goes back to the names in the book of life. So there's a set time that God knows how this all plays out, and it has to play out so that there's no question as to what is right and what is wrong.
Can you explain, because I never quite understood, as I was raised Catholic, and as such, most, and I don't want to limit this to Catholicism. It could be any denomination of Christianity. Anyone who's attended catechism, Bible school, Bible study, whatever. As a child, religion is drilled into you. They give you the facts and say, believe this, okay, and don't question. In many cases, especially with Catholic, don't question. But I've never quite understood the concept, or it was never fully explained, of the Holy Trinity. What is the concept of one God in three persons? I don't understand it completely.
Yeah. Why is there that? Is what you're asking.
Yes.
Well, I think for a couple of reasons. I mean, you have the Alpha Omega who creates the Spirit, and Jehovah as the first of the creations, as talked about in the book of Proverbs, and then also Colossians. So God is Alpha Omega, and he knows what he's going to do. And I think this is going to be needed to let things play out, so that you can create an angelic realm and then another realm of beings that are going to work in unity with the angels over time. And so you have this sort of dispersion of the responsibilities. They're all work in perfect harmony with the Father as a branch of the Father. So if you're going to create that sort of scenario, and then look at the application of it, is the Ruach is the Holy Spirit, is the Spirit of God. It's the life that comes into the world, and the wisdom and the knowledge, and the Word is the one who creates all of the things. And you need the Word to create all things and then become flesh. But you're also going to need the Holy Spirit to ensure that Jesus is going to be resurrected. And so there's sort of a requisite of how do you do that and not expose the Father to the corruption of the world, right? Who is above all of that. And so there's a process, and it's really hard to understand. And especially if you sort of take a step back and say, well, God only has to speak and everything happens, right? But he uses an extension of him to speak, which is the word.
Right.
And so it has to do with the divine nature of who the Father is, and that he is creating a world that is going to be there for beings that were created immortal after and before the creation of the physical world, but after the creation of the Spirit and the Word, and for the human beings who are lower and are going to be raised up to be like angels. So he's creating something that's going to fit in with that whole sort of hierarchy that's going to work in unison, just as you have the unison within the triune there. So yeah, it's complicated. And we don't have the ability to sort of enter into God's mind on why he decided he needed to do it that way. All we can look at is the information that we have that comes downstream from that, and understand there's an importance to having that Spirit, and there's an importance to having that one who does things as the word for God at God's command.
So let me ask you this then: when the universe was created and God created the heavens and the earth, was he just him, and then he created the Holy Spirit, and up until the time that Jesus came into there was like a holy duality instead of the Holy Trinity?
So according to Proverbs and Psalms 104 is you would have God, and then you would have the Spirit and Jehovah, and then you have the creation of the angels, and then you would have the creation of the physical world.
Okay. So and when after Jesus resurrected, but prior to his ascension into heaven, he told his disciples he was leaving. It'd be back sometime. He didn't.
Yep.
He himself said, "I don't know the hour or the day.
Yep.
My Father's the only one that knows. But I'm sending the Holy Spirit." I'm assuming the Holy Spirit is still here on earth then.
Yes.
Because I never heard of him leaving.
Nope. We don't get scripture that the Spirit was recalled, and this Holy Spirit will be here in the last 7 years, at least up to the midpoint of the last 7 years, because the book of Luke and the book of Mark says that the Holy Spirit will be the one who will help Christians stand up to the rulers of this world and testify. And we're told not to worry about what we're going to say, that the Holy Spirit will be there for you to provide those words for you. You have the Holy Spirit that worked in the early Christian church. You have the Holy Spirit that is working even to this day. And we don't know at what point in time the Holy Spirit is recalled, but yes, the Holy Spirit would still be here today.
Okay, that makes sense. In the remaining time that we have left, this is probably going to come more from, but you're the most, when it comes to these things, learned individual that we've ever had on the program. But why it's such an honor to have you all the time. But we get a lot of people who gives us their opinion on this Hamas-Israel war from a biblical perspective. And from what you've studied, what is really going on here? Because there are many who say that the Jewish people occupying that region of Israel now are not the real Jews. They're called Khazarians, and that they don't really have a right to this land, that the real Jewish people do. But when everyone speaks out against Zionism or the Khazarians, they're called anti-Semitic, when in actuality people are not against the real Jewish people, they're against these fake Jews. And I want to get your take on this? I know it's a lot longer than 15 minutes would allow us to cover, but a quick take on it.
Yeah, so I would say that the Ashkenazi or the Khazarians, that's part of the Middle European intermixing of Jewish people and some of the Slavic peoples. And some people would take that back to Scythians and Giants as being that Khazarian bloodline, and some of them would take it back to Edom and the giant bloodlines as well. And they're trying to take over the Jewish bloodline and sort of make sure that Israel is going to be wiped from the face of the earth. It's sort of part of that transgenerational plan. So I'm fine with the idea that not all the Jewish people are pure, as in sort of the lineages. I'm fine with that. And you don't have to be a pure blood to be Jewish. You can be, as a foreigner was accepted, they just have to accept God, and you can be part of that and intermarry in. But there is a remnant that God is going to fight for in the end time. And he's not fighting for the giant bloodlines or the Edomite bloodlines or the Gentile Slavic bloodlines, however you want to interpret that. So there is a remnant that's still there that God's going to fight for in the Gog War, and then bring in to reconciliation along with awakened lost Israel. And if you look at the Ashkenazi, it's probably about 13.5% as you do the genetics of that.
Right.
So, and there's different groups. You've got Sephardi's, you've got Orientals, you got several different groups. You have to understand they were dispersed into a number of different places. So to sort of take one group as part of the migrants that go back to Israel and say they're the whole number, it just doesn't make any sort of sense. But I do recognize that they may not all be Jewish people. And there's also the Kabbalistic side of Judaic society and culture as well. That's the polytheist version. That would be satanic Jews. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And they're part of that mix as well. So you don't have this unified monotheist remnant in there. But there will be a remnant still that are loyal to God and will recognize Jesus as the one that they pierced in the end time, and will accept Jesus as their Messiah. So that's what we always have to keep our eye on. And that, the creation of Israel and the Star of David, it all sort of goes back to like the Rosicrucians and the Rothschilds and that whole movement to try and bring about the end time at a sooner point in time than the ordained time. We're not told how Israel ends up back in the covenant land. They just are there in like Ezekiel 38 and 39, for example, and other passages. And so you have this polytheist Kabbalah side to the secret societies and the royal families that are trying to bring that back, that kingdom of heaven, reestablish it, just as they were trying to do in the Crusades to bring that end time sooner than later. And so they're a big part of the reestablishment of Israel, or the modern day contemporary Israel, the people of Judah in the land of the covenant. But again, all that has to be in place is that remnant in the covenant land in control of Jerusalem for the fig tree generation. And all of the events that sort of lead us into the end time are events contrived, driven by the enemies of Israel, the enemies of God. So now we look at Hamas. I mean, they have an oath to wipe Israel from the face of the earth.
Yeah.
Hezbollah has an oath to wipe Israel from the face of the earth. This is crazy stuff, but this is what started in the time of the first Exodus, and why it's relevant to understand what was before will be again, and why we'll have a second Exodus. And the first battle fought coming out of Egypt was against the Amalekites, when Israel didn't have any training in war, no real weaponry, and they're up against hybrids and giants. And the Amalekites are the hybrid race created by Eliphaz, son of Esau, brother of Jacob. And Eliphaz marries Timnah, a Horim, one of the giants, as one of the dukes of Edom, and creates these hybrid giants, and they're going to go live amongst the Amalekite giants. They have sworn an oath to wipe Israel from the face of the earth, and if they do, they inherit the birthright, the blessings, and the Messianic blessing through ancient law. And so they're also the ones that are going to stir up all of the other giant nations of the covenant land to wipe Israel from the face of the earth. And this becomes a transgenerational oath. So that in the time of King David, and in Psalms 83, he lists all of these nations, even at that time, who have sworn an oath to wipe Israel from the face of the earth. And that includes the Philistines, who are the ancestors of the Palestinians. And of course, the Philistines were the nemesis of Israel right through the ages of the Judges and right through to the time of King David, where he finally subdues the Philistine empire. And Hezbollah is in what the area in the empire of Tyre. And in Psalms 83, Tyre has sworn that bloodline oath. So there's still this bloodline that is transgenerational, that is trying to wipe Israel from the face of the earth. And I think Hamas is representing that. And when you look at the leadership of Hamas, are they living amongst the poor in Gaza? No, they're in Qatar.
Right.
Living in palaces and in
Right.
wealth.
True.
And so you have to look at that and say, they don't care about the Palestinians. They've got another agenda, and they're part of that bloodline leadership that is leading the Palestinians astray. Now, I don't let the Palestinians off the hook for trying to wipe Israel from the face of the, wipe Israel from the face of the earth in support of the Hamas constitution and oath to do that. I mean, they ought to overthrow Hamas and say, why don't we negotiate a peace? They haven't been occupied since 2006.
Palestinians did elect them.
They did.
Hamas was duly elected. That's the problem with democracy.
Yeah, and this whole idea that there's an occupation of Gaza. Israel left Gaza in 2006. Every time Hamas is offered a state, they turn it down. There's been 3 major points throughout history where they've been offered a state, and they walk away at the last moment. So how that relates to what's going on there today is that I can only sort of think that there has to be something that's transgenerational, that's in the DNA, that just keeps that fever going forever. The Palestinians aren't even considered Arabs. They're considered Greek from Cyprus. And if you look at what was going on before Israel won their independence or declared their independence in 1947, Palestinians were considered a lower level of people, and they were brutally treated by the Arab nations because they didn't consider them Arabs. They didn't have a nation under the Arabs. They were spread out all over the place and treated poorly. In the nations today, Palestinians have less rights in the Arab-run states than they do in Israel. And yet you have this sort of paradox, not a paradox, but this antithesis that they're so anti-Israel, they want to wipe them from the face of the earth in support of the Arabs, who have treated them poorly and never considered them part of their greater Arab nation state ever. And it just doesn't make any sense from that. But the thing is, with brainwashing and propaganda, I mean, you can get people to look at anything, and how now it's so, and it's not very far after, but Israel is the nation that is doing war crimes, and everybody has forgotten about what happened on October 7th, because the media is playing that card. And it's just absolutely, you wouldn't think that this could happen, but this is just the beginning of what's going to be happening for turmoil in there. So this isn't World War III there. This is just part of the birth pangs getting stronger.
Where can people get your book, and tell us when the second one with an update, the latest on that?
No update in terms of the printing release yet, other than the standard March 12th date for book 2. I am taking pre-orders. Amazon is taking pre-orders. Barnes & Noble, all the online stores are taking pre-orders for book 2. So the best place to get a hold of me or to buy book 1 or pre-order book 2 is through my website. That's the Genesis6conspiracy.com, Genesis 6, the number 6conspiracy.com. And on that website, I have a generous excerpt of all 98 chapters of book 1, all 84 chapters of book 2, and you can get a signed copy there. You can also link over to barnesandnoble.com, amazon.com, amazon.ca, and the Kindle edition from the website. If you wanted to get a hold of me for some information or ask me a question, you can do that through Contact the Author on the website. And if it's a document, just name the topic generally. And if I've got a topic on that, I'll send that to you at no charge. And if you're just asking a question, I will get back to you. It will take me a couple of weeks to get back to you, but I will get back to you.
Fantastic. Always a terrific hour when you're on. We look forward to the next time, even before this time ends. I can't wait to get you back. Thank you so much, and we will talk to you again in a couple of weeks. Gary Wayne, appreciate it.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
Thank you. Gary Wayne, the Genesis 6 Conspiracy, Genesis, the number 6 conspiracy.com. Order the book, and there is going to be a second edition out by March. Okay. We are going to take a quick break. When we come back, Nathan Reynolds is scheduled to join us, and he's waiting anxiously in the green room to come on and talk to you about himself and what we're going to be discussing today. I want to remind you folks, we are going to be gone on vacation the end of this week and a few days next week, and then we'll also be gone between Christmas. We'll be here between Christmas and New Year's, but there's going to be a couple of days we won't be here. All of that laid out for you in detail right here.
The Awake Nation, the co-host David Zublick and Penny Shepard, welcomes December. Get out your pens, mark your calendars, and save these dates. The following are the Awake Nation December vacation dates. The Awake Nation will be on vacation Friday, December 1st, 2023 through Wednesday, December 6th, 2023. The Awake Nation will return Thursday, December 7th, 2023. While you're at it, get out your pens. Save these dates. Awake Nation will also be on vacation Monday, December 24th through Wednesday, December 27th. Returning Thursday, December 28th through Friday, December 29th. Now save these dates too. The Awake Nation will also be on vacation Monday, January 1, 2024. And we will return Tuesday, January 2nd, 2024. That's our December calendar. Please save those dates. On behalf of the Awake Nation, with co-host David Zublick and Penny Shepard, we wish you safe and happy holidays. And season's greetings from the Awake Nation.
Oh, what fun it is to ride a one-horse open.
A sleighing.
Right. All right, let's bring in our next guest here on the Awake Nation, Nathan Reynolds.
Nathan?
Well,
a
howdy,
slayer,
howdy,
a professional assassin.
Yikes. Let's just go right for the throat.
Sleighing song tonight.
I didn't
Y'all
think
living
about-
dangerously?
We're living.
Yes. Actually, the dogs in the house are living pretty dangerously too.
Oh, man. Oh, no, the dogs. The dogs, Penny. The dogs are always living dangerously.
They are living dangerously. They encroached my territory in the middle of the night when someone left the door open and it was 33 degrees in the house and about 10 dogs in the house.
So,
Oh
in
my
other
God.
words, who let the dogs in,
Who let the
Oh,
dogs
no.
in?
or who left the
Wow.
door open? Anyway, Nathan, what do you want to talk about today? This is your second.
You guys, I don't know about any of y'all out there, but there seems to be some mighty crud going around that's making people ridiculously sick lately. And so I wanted to talk about some of our like super secret weapons that we use when we're fighting the common crud. You know what I'm saying? Because
Sounds good. Yeah.
last time we talked about knives and ways of killing people, which is one of my favorite topics in all time history, and I could talk about it forever. But there's also this passionate pursuit that I have, which is finding ways to mend people. And you know what? I am always looking for alternative resources in order to do that. And so I know we did a previous episode where I shared a bit about my absolute love for wild harvesting different plants, medicinal plants from out of nature. But I wanted to go over one, which seems to be like there's a major struggle that people are having right now with coughs and with congestion and with this just phlegm and everything like that. And so I wanted to just share with you guys a little bit about some of my favorite go-to resources, because if you haven't been paying attention, there has been this deliberate action lately where they're starting to pull what are the over-the-counter medicines away from people that are the defaults.
NyQuil.
Do you know about this, David? Will you tell people about this a little bit?
Yeah, well, they apparently there is some ingredient that was put into some of the over-the-counter medications that they said wasn't dangerous, but it just didn't do what it said it was supposed to do. So rather than and I'm sure at some point the companies are going to just take this particular ingredient out and put the stuff back on the shelves without it. But for now, because it doesn't harm you, I don't understand why, but they've pulled them right off the shelves, like NyQuil and these sort of things.
Well, NyQuil had alcohol in it.
Well, that did that. Yes. Although,
right.
Yeah, but they've changed the formula and got the alcohol out of there quite a while ago. But they used to, though. That used to be what knocked you out. But yeah, there's some sort of ingredient in there that they said doesn't really do anything for you.
Indeed. And a lot of those, if you go ahead and look at what a lot of those were covering, the symptoms that they were trying to deal with, or people are using them to manage, were decongestants, things that help to dry out the sinuses and deal with cough suppressions. And so anytime I see something like that, my little red flags of mighty tinfoil conspiracy hat turns on, because for a lot of people, this is the medicines that they've been conditioned to go and use as the way of keeping themselves out of higher level of care, where they're going to an urgent care or a hospital. Instead, right now, what a lot of people are experiencing is symptoms of something that's like walking pneumonia, where they're just continually having this raspy cough and they're not able to deal with it. And
they were talking about that in China, I think it was.
Yes,
the babies are having it, but they're saying that that it is a result of the vaccinations, because now the children don't have any immunities.
Yeah, it's quite a challenge. And even out here in the Ozarks, we noticed that almost overnight, all of our friends and people that we knew kind of around us, even a lot of these people live homestead lifestyles. They don't go out and are interacting with a lot of people. All of them almost immediately got these same symptoms overnight. And so I always am just like, all right, there's something afoot here, whether the modalities of how transmission is going along. But I just want to share with you some of my absolute weapons in my arsenal. Okay.
That's awesome. Let's do it. Because
this is one of the best for lung and respiratory issues. This comes from what's called the mullein plant, okay? This is like a ubiquitous weed that you have seen growing a lot of times in rocky, full sun areas. We used to call it Indian toilet paper when I was growing up, because it's perfect for wiping your butt. It's amazing for it. Very soft, giant leaves, or like skunk plant, sometimes they'll call it. But it has this great long stalk on the top of it, which is good for making your own like candles and torches, stuff like that. But the leaves of this are soft and really fuzzy, and they're large, and they're great for lung and respiratory issues. And so what I do, I'll just tell you guys real quick. This is what I do. Okay. When I start with like raw leaf like this. You guys can buy this stuff anyways. I'm going to show you like the way to craft it yourself. And I'm also going to share with you an opportunity, if you would like, to go ahead and just get it for yourself. You can buy mullein tincture, which is a way to get these medicines, to be able to get it to your children or anybody else. And but this is really often used in cough syrups, cough suppressants, natural ones, along with two other ingredients, which are licorice root, which makes everything taste sweet. Licorice root. I go and buy bulk herbs, y'all, and I put them in these mason jars, and I write the names of them, and along with like some of the symptoms of things that they help to treat or they alleviate. Licorice root and dandelion root. These are like really incredibly potent. To just this little cocktail right here is one of like your go-to herbs. So when I take these raw ingredients, like when I harvest the mullein leaf, I go and collect a bunch of it, okay? And then I keep it when it's fresh and it's like that. I then mix it in with a lot of vodka, like a high quality vodka. And I like to do a hot extraction. You can do a cold extraction for making tinctures. Most people do cold extractions. I'm shockingly impatient and I'm very, very energized and I want to get stuff done immediately. And so I like to work with fire and explosives anyway. So what I do is I make like a double broiler. And so that I have like a water bath. And I put my jar in there and I fill it up with a bunch of Mullen, and then I'll fill it up with vodka. Or you can use something like a higher grain, like if any of you guys have moonshine, make your own moonshine. You guys can use that, or you can.
Do you make your own moonshine?
I don't, David. I took a vow to abstain from alcohol because
well, I don't drink, and neither does Penny, so that's good.
Yeah, I had to stop the moonshine life. It was not good for me.
I was going to say fire, explosive, knives, and vodka do not mix well together.
Yeah, no. See, I'm a real sad drunk. It's not the same. I'm real happy, and then I just weep.
That almost sounds like it would be a great name for a movie. Like you have planes, trains, automobile, fire, explosive, knives, and vodka.
Yeah. I had to take a literal vow to stop it. I was like, this stuff's gonna jack me up. I had children. I'm like, I can't be that dad. Like some of us gotta break a generational. We got to break a generational cycle sooner or later. It's not in our genes, y'all. It's like a curse. It's a generational curse of alcoholism. And I was like, I took a Nazarite vow, found in number 6 to be able to do that. But I boil. So yeah, that can be a different problem. So, but those of you, just consider it. If you're all on that struggle bus, I'm just saying, that's why I believe in the scriptures. He gave us the answer to everything we've ever struggled with. And number 6 was that for me, a physical reminder that you don't belong to yourself. And my wife's been sober like 12 years, our entire marriage, and she's a completely different person and broke that cycle from her family line. And we're trying to raise up a generation that is generational curse breakers, but awesome. This is one of the ways that we try to get medication to our family in a powerful and potent way. And so we boil this down in that little water bath, and we boil off a lot of the excess water. And this might take 15 minutes, 30 minutes, and you're reducing that down until you have a real concentrated syrup. And then you strain out your material, and I put that in these little jars. Like this one, I harvested white willow bark and black willow bark. And so like the inner bark from the white willow, this stuff's amazing, y'all.
Yeah,
this is like literally
where that's actually what they put in like any kind of analgesic like aspirin or, that's the foundation right there. And I prefer tinctures too, because the tinctures you can, it's sublingual. So it goes into your system. It doesn't have to go through, through your digestive system. It just goes right in there.
Absolutely. This is a really good one for pain relief. One of our friends had a cracked wisdom tooth and was just in absolute agony. And so I went and made this. And this is something that I always have on hand, y'all. It's a way of learning a skill. Like you'll learn to identify a plant in nature if you actually have a use for it. And like willow trees are ubiquitous around areas where there's a lot of water. And this is something you go shave the inner bark off of that, throw that in a pot of water, or throw that and just make a tea out of it. Or you can make an extract with alcohol. Alcohol extracts compounds a little differently. You can also add a little bit of apple cider vinegar in with your extract as you're doing those reductions. The other way to do it over the low and slow way is just to fill like a quart jar with your material like this. You can fill with licorice root, and then you could just fill the rest of the way up with vodka and then shake it and then put it on a shelf in a dark area. And then every couple days, give it a good shake. And over a couple of weeks, you're going to get an extract that way as well. But it's not quite as fast or as strong necessarily. So I do it the other way. But what I get out of that, y'all, are these little tinctures. And I'll just show you. These are some of like my go-to ones. This is somebody made Mullen tincture, and they gave this to us as well back a year ago. And this is something my family used anytime we felt like respiratory stuff coming on. We would use the Mullen tincture along with one other one, which is usnea. If you guys have never heard, it's called old man's beard in other places, usnea. Now, this one is like your nature's antibiotic. This is one of the most important single herbs that I have ever found. And it grows all over trees in like a wetter climate. You're not going to find this stuff in the deserts. This stuff will hang down. It looks like it's got little bungee cords coming out of it when you pull on it. This is one of the most potent little antibiotics that you can ever have. One of the best ways of killing off the stuff inside you that's causing all kinds of toxic inflammation in your body, and helps to cleanse your body and detoxify your body. Usnea is amazing. I absolutely love this stuff. And then one of the other ones that I make is with wild cherry bark. You guys, I know I talked in my last episode about going and scraping the inner bark off of a tree and getting that. Wild cherry bark is the one that I do that with the most, because it's everywhere around me. I almost find it in forests where there's a lot of oak or there's a lot of hickory, and I take my knife and I cut out like a rectangular space from it. You can take it from branches that have fallen off. I like to take it from a living tree because there's a lot of those juices. This is like the blood of a tree, y'all. Those juices are flowing through it, and I like to take it, cut it off, and scrape it. And so you're getting this layer that's right between the outer like hard bark that you're thinking about. And then there's this little inner bark area. That's the stuff that you're really wanting to do. And so one of my favorite combinations is wild cherry bark along with the mullein, the licorice root. I make just basically my own like cough medicine that way. And so then I have this. This also has the American spice bush in it and licorice root. And so these are like weapons in my warfare now, y'all. Like I'm absolutely fanatical about having a good medicine chest. And so like when we like to build out med kits, you know, people are like, what's in your bug out bag, Nathan? What's in your bug out bag? You know, like my med kit is definitely different. My wife, she was an RN, a registered nurse for like 10 years. And
wow.
She got brainwashed into the ways of wickedness, you know what I mean? And insanity for a lot of that. And so it's taken her a while to learn herbs are so potent and beneficial. But she's found like during this whole season, because my children had this like crazy intense like mucus and drainage and all that stuff that was going on for them. Well, I had found this one because I went to this apothecary place that had all these medicinal herbs, and I was just looking up each one and trying to find out its uses. And they had one that was called bayberry root bark. This, y'all, is nature's Sudafed. I'm telling you guys, it'll dry. Like you don't need Claritin and all that other stuff. All those other just like allergy, antihistamine, like drugs. Bayberry root bark. Now, this comes from a company that's called Star West Botanicals. And this stuff is the powdered version of it, like grinding these herbs up. And then when you make your extracts, it's just a better way of extracting it. But this one you just take as if it was like a supplement. This stuff is amazing because it dries out those sinuses. When you've got that just constant drainage, that's where we get a lot of these like these sore throats and just feeling like junk in the morning when you're coughing.
It's the drainage. It makes you feel like you have a sore throat, but it's actually the drainage into your throat that it's horrible.
Absolutely. And it's super frustrating, especially when you got little children and stuff like that. It's hard to do that. Like we're having to suck out boogers out of the baby's noses. You know what I mean? And you're like, oh, it's just like a miserable part of life, but you got to deal with it. And you start to get desperate. And it's in that desperation, y'all, that they have designed a system that really caters to people's struggles and their fears. And in that moment, they're going to turn to those things that have been brainwashing over their mind for decades. And it's all those ads that you think, okay, people are watching these TV shows and these movies and stuff, and they're seeing these ads all the time. They don't think it's wearing on them, but it's working on the back areas of their mind. And so that when they're in that distressed state and they're in that state where like, I need something, they go to the drug dealer down the street. You know, they go to their Walgreens or their CVS or their Walmart, and they go through those aisles and they get the same drugs that they think, oh, these ones will push the off switches on, and they'll turn off those switches. You know what I mean? But what we found is if you just use symptom management to cover up the problems inside your body, it's going to come out sooner or later. Your body has to try to address the issue. And our Creator intimately made us perfectly so that we could heal the systems inside ourselves. We just need to give it the right tools in order to do that. That when you use natural medicines like this, it takes longer a lot of times to heal yourself. It takes longer, but the long-term gain is you actually cure it. You actually develop a resistance and immunity to it. And it's much more profound. Some of my favorite books, y'all, this is called Be Your Own Doctor by Rachel Weaver. She wrote another one that's called Be Your Child's Pediatrician. These are like some of our go-tos when we got any kind of issue that pops up with our children. These are the ones that we reach for. And in here, she's got a little section on coughs. And I'm just going to read you guys a little excerpt out of it because this is so helpful. And I know there's a lot of parents who are dealing with these issues. There's a lot of families out there who are trying to find a way to stay out of the systems as much as they can because they found duplicitousness buried within there, and the cost has been tremendously bad. So this is just their little section on coughs that she has in here, and I'm going to just read this to you. A stubborn cough may respond well to a simple thing like warm lemon juice and honey. This is an old-timey remedy. I love wild cherry for that, and this is my recipe for cough syrup. Purchase shredded wild cherry bark from Mountain Rose Herbs. It's a 1/4 pound shredded wild cherry bark. You put 1 cup of bark in a saucepan and cover it with 2 cups of water. Simmer at a very slow boil until you have about 1 cup of water left. Strain the herb out and add a 1/2 cup of honey. This makes about a 1/2 cup of very helpful cough soother. I would keep my cough syrup in the fridge for wintertime use. Most folks will tell you not to give this to a baby since it contains honey, which is nonsense. People have been giving honey to babies forever.
Oh, yeah, of course they have.
Forever.
Yes. Not only that, Nathan, I'm a singer, and I remember being so hoarse this one time. I had an audition, and I took I made hot lemonade with honey and lemons, and I drank that for 4 hours. And by the time the audition came, I had a voice.
Wow. See, I love talking to musicians. They have some of the most insightful things when it comes to hoarseness and
also
dealing
garlic.
with any of that.
Garlic nature's. I had forgotten my homeopathy, And when I was in Branson, I asked this one guy, it felt like it was strep. And he said, take a clove of garlic and chase it with some really good honey. And I did that. And I did not take any antibiotics because, as you know, antibiotics will destroy your immune system for like a year.
Yeah.
And I got over it.
Wow. That's awesome. Garlic is
The
garlic
clove
is
of
so
garlic,
potent.
though, when you eat that clove of garlic, expect you're going to feel like a freaking heart attack because it goes in there.
It actually helps
Yeah.
your heart.
But when you're clogged up like that, it hits you, and it really, it's cleaning it out. But it felt like I was gonna have a heart attack. Just it goes over really fast. But
one vampire came your way and bit you.
And I said, thank God I don't have a boyfriend right now.
Make you a little stinky. It surely does.
Little, but it works.
It's the good stuff going out. That's brilliant. We found one of the other things that we started doing is you take an onion, y'all. Onions are an incredibly helpful tool that should be around. They've been around forever, right? Garlic and onion and potatoes are basically the staple of most humans' houses that have access to it. You know what I'm saying? Onions have one of the most incredible medicinal properties, and this is in the Be Your Own Doctor book. She's got a couple pages here just devoted to onions. This is absolutely fantastic. Onions' uses are as an antibiotic, relaxant, coughs, high blood pressure, coughs and colds, pneumonia, high blood sugar, bacterial infections, stops bruising, and for the immune system. Onions are known to decrease bronchial spasms, and an onion extract was found to decrease allergy-induced bronchial constriction in asthma patients. So for those of you guys that are going through those breathing issues and you're having some of that potential pneumonia, I'm not saying that there's going to be an absolute war with a massive respiratory illness coming, you know what I'm saying? But in case there is, go to the onion, y'all. And what we do, y'all, is we cut an onion into slices and we put them on the bottoms of our feet, and then we put a sock on over it, and then we go to bed with that on. And what happens is the pores on the bottoms of your feet are the largest pores inside your body, and they allow that to start to get absorbed into your body. And onions are more like an adaptogenic. They're going to go into different areas of the body and begin to work on it. And so we started doing that, and I kid you not, we were like 50% better the next day from an onion on our feet. We're like, I really believe that our Creator is so loving to us that He provides the cures, CRURES, cures to us cheap. You know, He loves people, and He loves people that are the poor and the rich. He has no favor to any face of any man, and He is going to provide His cures to people at all levels of their socioeconomic class. And a simple onion, we like to get organic sweet onions. They don't necessarily smell as bad, and my children like being around them. They help to cut them and stuff. But we also make a syrup from it, okay? And you can make just a straight up syrup from that. It's just boiling down an onion, a couple different forms of the syrup. You can throw all of those herbs like I was talking about in a pot of water, and then cut slices of onions into that, and then boil that for a few hours. And the syrup will it'll render down to a nice like syrup. Now there's another way of making a syrup that she talks about here in the book, and I'm going to read that to you guys because this one's fantastic. Now she says, onions for coughs. An onion poultice helps to quiet nasty coughs that keep you or your children from sleeping. It breaks up the congestion and once again clears out the fluid from the lungs. Chop an onion finely. Mix it with salt in a 2-to-1 ratio. Put it on a saucer and heat it and place it in a frying pan until the onion is somewhat soft. Put the mix on an old cloth and cool until you can rest your forearm on it. Oil the child's chest with olive oil, then flip the cloth onto his chest and bind it there. It can stay on all night if you wish. This really helps an annoying nighttime cough. I've always used this remedy until I found garlic salve, which is easier to work with. Be sure that you do not make the onion too hot or you'll burn your child's chest once like I did. I had put on a poultice and the boy began to make an awful fuss. He was one that had a tendency to be fussy, so I told him he'd be fine. He'd be okay even if it felt strange, but he kept saying, "Mama, it burns." I checked him then and I was really sorry. He had a very red area from too much heat. So always check the temperature by applying to your forearm. Now, this is a recipe for an onion syrup. A cough is the body's response to inflammation or irritation in the throat, larynx, bronchial tubes, or lungs. For a congested cough, try this recipe. Materials: an onion or sugar or honey with a glass jar. So you can use sugar or honey here in this recipe. Cut a medium onion in half and then slice it into 1/4-inch pieces. Break it into parts and layer 1 part onion and 1 part sugar in the glass jar. Mash the onion up with the end of a spoon to begin juice extraction. Let the preparation sit overnight or for 3 or 4 hours until a syrup is formed. Strain out the pieces. Give your child 1 teaspoon of syrup every few hours as needed. This really works to loosen the cough and give a quiet night of rest. Adult dose is double or triple the amount, and the sugar draws out the intercellular fluid, including a sulfur compound that is both antibacterial and antiviral. It tastes pretty good. You can also make a garlic syrup in the same fashion, which has similar properties to the onion and may be even more therapeutic. For stuffy noses, chop 1 onion and place it in a small bowl. Drizzle 2 tablespoons of honey over the chopped onion. Go to bed and place the bowl as close to your head as possible on a nightstand or next to your pillow. You'll breathe freely all night. Wake up in time to shower because you'll surely smell like onions. There you go, Penny. Another stinky remedy.
Right. Somebody's going to want to eat you.
Of course, if you have a bad cough and you're using these onions, your family will stay as far away from you as possible. Might not hear the cough anyway. So that's one way.
That is true. But it sounds like a, when you're cooking like regular food, it sounds like I want to eat you. It's, you know what I'm saying? It's like, let's put a little garlic in there and some onions. And you're like, that sounds really good. Like how did she just put it in the poultice and not eat it? It's so flavorful.
Yeah. Well, it's good. Food is your medicine. This has been the way. There's amazing amount of doctors who are out there who do know a lot of these remedies, and they do this stuff, and they're shackled within the confines of their bylines and their insurance agencies. They got a lot of struggles out there. There's a lot of incredible MDs who do an incredible amount of good work out there, but they are stuck in a system that's very unrewarding of their alternative remedies. And so I give absolute credence and respect to anybody that's trying to pursue a means of bringing these medicines and these cures out to the people, because it's a major uphill battle. We really are. Each and every one of us has these different arenas of warfare. We have these different fronts of this massive total onslaught war that we're fighting against, and we are outnumbered and outfinanced by and far. But the good thing is, if you're absolutely living and walking in the truth to the best of your understanding, you are truly filled with the ability to overcome those struggles and those adversaries as they come across your way, because we have to contend against these things. And you know what? There's a massive targeting of our health for a reason, because if we can get it, the adversaries of peace, the adversaries of life, they're seeking ways to steal, kill, and destroy continually. And they know that if they can steal our health, they're going to leave us weak and vulnerable, and we're much more likely to capitulate. It's hard to have courage and conviction when you're already bodily so compromised. I have such a strong and passionate desire. Like my wife and I, so much of what our ministry and coming out and speaking is about trying to point people to these remedies and to these cures. Because if I just talk about all the big, bad, scary stuff all the time that's going on and all of the monsters out there, and we leave people over there, they get hopeless. They get filled with despair. But if we can instead turn and be like, hey, the remedies are out here. They're readily available, and they're for free. By and far, a lot of these are for free or very, very cheap. It gives people hope. And as you start to deal with a lot of these issues, I'm telling you, the level of your intelligence, the level of the brilliance of your mind and the recall and the sharpness and the acuity and the convictions and the courage that you have, it builds with it. And as you have that, you're willing to set in and be like, you know what, I am going to talk to these people about these things. I am going to be willing to go and share this with my coworkers and start to find these ways. And people begin to notice you because you're like a brilliant light in a very dim and dull world. And this is what we're supposed to be. You're supposed to be a people that are peculiar, a set apart people that people will turn to in the days of their struggles and their calamities and be like, how are you where you are? Why do you have freedom? And I really believe any of you, no matter what you're struggling with, whether it's bodily stuff like we're talking about, or whether it's spiritual, junky, funky stuff like depression and despair and addictions, you can cry out to the one who made you with love and with compassion, with joy. He made you for a purpose, and he will answer you and give you what you need. He really does still care about us. He's not far off. Like you just had Gary Wayne on. He's one of my favorite guests that you guys have on. He is incredibly articulate at explaining some of these very complex systems that have been going on and a lot of the orchestrated design, but of deceit that's been out there. But there really is good news to every creature that is out there. Like there is a massive conspiracy to destroy people, but there's an even greater orchestrator who is navigating the entire world to let people find the truth. When they seek him with all their heart, he will find them. He will surely be found by those who seek him. And so I pray that you guys would cry out to him. He will answer you and give you deliverance. He will help you to know, hey, these are the cures that he has been waiting to give you all of your life. They've always been out there. And if we're willing to go back a couple generations to look at like This is one of my other favorite books out there, y'all. Self-Heal by Design. This is written by a woman named Barbara O'Neill. Barbara O'Neill is incredible speaker, very articulate woman. You guys can look up her videos online as well. But this is her book, Self-Heal by Design. And she goes through a lot of these systems of explaining how we get an understanding of how the body actually works and how the creator designed us to heal from that massive onslaught that we're battling with. So I thank you guys so much for having me on here. It's absolutely a blast to be on here. You guys are tremendously fun to be around.
We appreciate you very much, Nathan. And please remind our viewers your website is
snatchedfromtheflames.com.
snatchedfromtheflames.com. Go there, check out Nathan. And you have your own podcast, don't you?
I do. Well, yeah, I put it out through YouTube and Spreaker, Amazon, and BitChute, and Rumble. I'm Rumble, the Linen Railroad as well. So we put out content on there quite regularly. So if any of you guys are looking to
check it out, folks, a lot of valuable information. Nathan, thank you for being with us. We appreciate it.
Likewise.
Bye-bye. Nathan Reynolds here on the Awake Nation. Do want to remind you before we bring in our next guest again, through midnight Mountain Time tonight, this great product here, NutraSwish by the manufacturer Numi, which is liquid glutathione, God's molecule. Buy one, get one free. I want to just tell you about their products. I'm going to play two videos back to back. I want you to check these out. First, the NutraSwish. Check it out.
Remember when this was the best delivery method for music? Remember when this was the best delivery method for supplements? Every industry evolves and improves with new breakthroughs in science and technology. Here at Numi, we've used a proprietary technology to solve an issue that's been around since nutritional supplementation began: the problem of absorption. So many of today's supplements are less effective due to their inability to be absorbed naturally by the body. Using our own proprietary Hydrostat Nano Delivery breakthrough, we reduce the particle size of critical nutrients smaller than ever before, allowing them to absorb in your mouth while swishing for 30 seconds or more. Glutathione is your body's master antioxidant. It's responsible for boosting your energy, detoxifying cells, reducing inflammation, and boosting the immune system. If glutathione is so amazing, why have you never heard of it? Because glutathione is extremely fragile, and if taken orally, it will be destroyed via the digestive process, rendering it virtually useless to the body. Until now, NutraSwish applies nanotechnology to achieve maximum absorption. Now, glutathione and other nutrients can be absorbed simply and quickly by swishing in the mouth instead of being destroyed in the stomach. Using this same nanotechnology, we've created the ultimate skincare product, Numi Skin. We've been able to achieve unparalleled absorption for key ingredients, including collagen, hyaluronic acid, and more. Some of the top skin experts in the world work together to create the ultimate blend of skin-enhancing nanonutrients, creating the most amazing before and after results. With our nano solution, you no longer have to wait months to experience the effects of skincare and supplementation. Our customers are noticing a difference within a matter of days. Don't wait to look, feel, and live your best life. A new you starts with Numi.
All right, so till midnight Mountain Time tonight, buy one NutraSwish, get one free. Buy one of the skincare products, get one free. Go to theawakenation.numi.com, theawakenation.neumi.com, or just go to our website, awakenation.tv. There's a link right there at the top of the page. This has been extended for one day more. And now let us bring in our next guest, Ellen Gunnar Lindbloom, author of some great books. And I think you're still working on another one, are you not?
Yeah, I have a new novel. I'm the author of To Be a King, Volume 1 and 2. But I have a new novel. Well, I wrote 9 novels when I was in prison. I've only published 2 of them. Then I came home. What's that?
I said, dang, that's a lot.
Yeah, well, I stayed busy. I had 13 years in prison, so I kept myself busy.
That's a lot of time.
Crazy story, that in my book, I wrote a book, this book, To Be a King. My current wife found sample chapters of them on the internet and read them and asked to read the whole manuscript because she worked for a publisher in New York. She She read them and was blown away, said it was the best book she ever read. So we ended up starting writing as pen pals, fell in love. She waited 7 years and we married after I got out. We've been a couple for 14 years. But so about 2 years ago, I wrote a book called Blindsight 2030, which is about, it's in the year 2030, China hits us with a series of attacks that wipes us out, but they're not like bombs, not like that. Hit us with a cyber attack, hit us, knock our grid down, cyber attack, then an EMP, and they just wipe us out. But first they soften us with the economic. They just literally stop trading with us, which collapses our entire economy within like 3 weeks. It's 70% of people are out of work. It's chaos. And then they hit us with the cyber. And anyways, so it's kind of a controversial book, because it's I'm a right center guy for sure, and it leans the story addresses some of the leftist and insanity that is happening today in the culture, and this is what led to this all happening. It's an interesting book because the main character is a dude who's in prison for something he didn't do, and he just served 10 years for something he didn't even do. A guy killed a guy and he happened to be there, and they got him 10 years. So he's about about 18 months before this event, he tells his girl who's from Ann Arbor, Michigan, she's like a city girl, listen, do you trust me? Yes. I want you to take our daughter and move way up north and start a homestead, get some chickens and a couple, horses, and just, she's like, what are you talking about? I don't know nothing about the country. She's like, listen, something bad's happening. Something bad's going to happen. I want you to be safe. Go up there and start a homestead and bring our daughter. Her name is Bella. And so she does, and then this event happens while he's only got like 3 months left in prison, and this happens. Now, in the event of martial law, what they do with prisons is just lock them down and leave them. After the EMP, cars aren't moving. All the guards at the prison want to go home to their families, but they got to walk 10, 20 miles, whatever. So they just leave the place. And the National Guard just puts one little team out in front, and they lock the prisoners down to die. But there's this one cool officer who likes my main character. His name is Dylan, because Dylan's father had saved him from getting jumped one time years ago. He recognized his name. He says, "Was your dad in the army?" He's like, "Yeah." "How'd you know?" He's like, "Do you live in this area?" "Yeah." "Well, these guys were jumping my dad one day, and your dad jumped out in his uniform and like broke it up and saved him, and yada yada." So this officer has been helping him like all along. And all of a sudden he says, "I don't think he deserved to die in prison." He gives him a master key to break out of the prison. And of course he breaks out, and there's other guys, bad guys, kind of force themselves on him to take him with them. And so he's trying to get to his wife and daughter, who are 300 miles away, through anarchy, and it's chaos. And he encounters all these crazy characters, saves some of them. It's chaos. People are killing each other over a can of soup at this point. There's no water. You have a massive die-off in the first couple of days because there's no water. Then there's no food. There's no medicine. This is about 6 weeks after the initial attack, so it's really bad out there. And he's trying to find his wife and daughter, who are 300 miles away. And there's this one character, this girl, imagine like Beyonce. So she's got a private jet. It ends up during the EMT, it crashes, and most of her entourage are killed. This is her and her bodyguard, and a couple other people are alive, and they're just kind of wandering around looking for help. And they end up going to this like little retirement community out in the woods, out in this way up north. It just so happens that one of the people that help them is the father of my main character. And he's going there to arm himself because the father's like a gun dealer and stuff. You don't even know if he's still alive. Anyways, this is a whole series of events. But after we started doing this TV series, my producer said could be a very controversial book. There's a lot of people who might try to cancel
a TV series. You could make a whole TV series out of this book.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
It actually sounds, to tell you the truth, Alan, it sounds prophetic.
Yeah, well, that's what everybody says. And if I actually explained how they do it, it's just absolutely mind blowing how China, if they really want to, if China right now cut trade with us, it'd be over for America. It'd be over. They could survive. And in the book, the way I do it, the way they keep themselves surviving, because they're a hybrid a communist country. What they do, so China makes all our trinkets and electronics and everything for us, right? The poor people there work in factories and make them. So what China does is cut trade with America and then issues kits, which are like money vouchers that you can use to buy all the stuff that the Chinese have been making for Americans. The Chinese now can buy from themselves. So they just create this hermetically sealed economy within. and everybody gets these vouchers, and now everybody's buying cars and houses and electronics and computers, and now everybody's like working full time, but instead of slaving for the American people for pennies, they are now reaping the rewards of what they're making and other labor. So the country is very, very happy. They recruit a 200 million man army, and they basically tell America, we're coming for, we want your resources. We want California for its agriculture, and we want Alaska for its oil. And that's just it. So there's no choice. You know, if you go to nuclear war, it's a zero-sum game. You know what I'm saying? Nobody wins. If you start firing nukes, we all die, world is over. Your only choice is to vacate those territories of California and Alaska and let us have them. And you know, then it's just like a political aspect of it happening. But you know, the main character is kind of a conservative Christian dude, and he's you know, there are characters. So I tell the story from both sides, like people who are like, you know, leftist leaning, like the Beyonce chick. She's half white, but all her life she's been told she's black, and to be ashamed of her white side, you know. And
Right.
so, and after this crash, these white people help her, and her mother's white, and one of her assistants is like, oh, the white people did this, and she's like, listen, the only people in my white life who've ever. So I'm telling the story from her perspective and all these other perspectives, so you get the, you know, the kind of the liberal perspective, the conservative perspective, but the main character kind of is in the center, right? Anyway, so I can't publish that book because it's controversy. So I decided to publish one of my other books, the Snowman Chronicles, one of the ones I wrote in prison, which is about two enormous cocaine smugglers, just huge cocaine smugglers. They start off as literally nobody, little small time drug dealers. One of them's connected to the mob, and one of them finds out when he's 20 years old that his uncle is a cocaine kingpin in Colombia. And so what they end up doing is kind of brokering a deal between the Colombians and the mafia. And it starts off kind of regionally, just in the Midwest and Miami, New York, but then it expands, and they get involved with these big hedge fund manager and these big, huge investors, and there's a bunch of diplomats involved, and they start using mafia factions all over the world to distribute cocaine and other drugs. And these two guys are like the brokers, the main dudes between it. And they get to the point where they're making about $1 million a day, and they don't even know what to do with the money. And the Canadian government makes them low-level diplomatic attaches. One of the Minister of Commerce is in on the smuggling thing, and they're paying them 30%. You know, and they have a fishing company in Vancouver that is bringing in cocaine from Colombia, and the commerce guy finds out about it and says, it's fine to keep doing it, but I need a piece. And then at one point he's like, hey, listen, I need you guys to go to an event for the UN. Nobody wants to go in my office. I need somebody from my office there. You know, I'll make you guys diplomats. You guys go there, just sit in a chair, be seen. You're Canadian, represent Canada. And they ended up meeting the Prince of Luxembourg, and then that guy introduced them to
Alan, you're freaking fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. It gets this story gets even crazier and crazier, because while they're with the Prince of Luxembourg hanging out for the weekend, the one mentions that he's a big aeronautics guy. He wants to buy a fighter jet, but he can't buy an American fighter jet. But one guy says, I know my friend, he owns an F1 team. He's going to be in Monaco this weekend. You want to go down there and talk to him? He's got a bunch of planes. He might know somebody. So they go down and hang out with this guy, billionaire who owns an F1 team, and they hit it off, and they actually stay at the Prince of Monaco's castle while they're there. And that guy says, I know a guy who's in a Saudi oil sheik who has some fighter jets. Maybe he'll sell. So they end up going down there, and he says, I can't sell fighter jets. They break the UN agreement. He's like, but I am friends with the King of Kuwait. And when during the Iraq War, America gave them a couple squadrons of fighters, and they don't use them anymore because America has a base there. Maybe they're old and decommissioned. Maybe he'll sell them. So they go meet up, and it's just this crazy series of events, and they end up in Hollywood making this big movie. It's crazy. So that's the book that I'm finishing up right now. The editing and the proofing. It's really wild. It's got a really good redemptive story too. I mean, these guys have so much freaking money. It's called the Snowman Chronicles, and they have so much money coming in, they don't even know what to do with it. At one point, they actually broker the purchase of a Greek shipping freighting company, 12 freighters, so they can use them to move cocaine and other drugs around the world for these high-level politicians and hedge fund managers involved. These guys, they put up $900 million to buy this fleet, and the cocaine cartel put up half of it, and so they're just now they're moving coke, and they own like 1,000 LLC companies, and they're using all these front businesses and all. It's very complex. But and how they come, their downfall comes apart is because the one main character's name is Titus Tagliano. He's a big, good-looking guy, Italian guy. He ends up punching an actor in the face, and the producer who was there with them told him, don't press charges against this guy because he's tied to the mafia in Detroit. Well, the actor went to his brother-in-law, who was an FBI agent, and says, listen, this is what happened. They said this guy tied to. So they start investigating, and at first they can't really put anything together. They seem to be legitimate. But then there's a couple little minor things that like red flag, and they start looking deeper and deeper and deeper, and then they finally get him. And the main character telling the story from prison, he gets 15 years in prison. The only reason he only got 15 years is because when they arrest him, he says, I want the Frank Lucas deal. And they're like, what? He's like, but I'm not cooperating. I'm not ratting on anybody, but I'll forfeit. I have over $500 million assets. I'll forfeit to you in lieu of give me a good sentence. So they do. He forfeits like $500 million, and they give him 15 years. So when he's in prison, he decides to write this story, his story, and he meets this woman, and that's how it all. It's and I don't want to give away the ending because the ending's really good, but there's a twist on it. Basically, Titus Tagliano, the supporting lead character, vanishes as soon as the bust happens with the one of them. He calls and says, run, they got us, and he runs, and this dude just vanishes, and they never find him. And so 15 years later, the main character, the FBI come and visit him, and they're like, we warned you, if you had more money, you going back to prison to serve life in prison, blah, blah, blah. He's like, what are you talking about? Like, somebody just donated $300 million in your name to a charity that you regularly don't money. He's like, I send $50 a month. It's called Compassion International. He's like, that's it. He's like, I don't have no freaking money. And so he gets this postcard, and he's looking at this postcard from Compassion International, and it says, thank you for building our new school. And he's like, I didn't build a new school. Why is this coming to me? And he's looking at it, and this is after the FBI come, and he's freaking out because they're threatening to throw him back in the prison because somebody donated all his money in his name. And he's looking in there, and the other main character had been shot when he was in the Middle East in the ass, and he limped. And the producer of this movie they were involved in gave him a cane, a very unique cane, handmade cane. It's the head of an eagle. It's bejeweled. And in that postcard, he's looking at the postcard. It's a black and white kind of grainy footage with a bunch of kids in the jungle sitting around little school that is made. And he sees that cane lean against the wall, and he realized his boy, who'd been vanished for 15 years, is the one who donated all that school, all for him, because there's a connection. There's a girl, and the girl came to visit him, and she says, how you doing, Jimmy? And he's like, doing. He's like, I'm supporting this charity. I'm a Christian now. I'm changed. I'm remorseful, whatever. And she's like, oh, so that girl had gone to, who was still talked to the banished dude, and said, Jimmy, he didn't coming back to that life. Da 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 da. So his best friend decided all the money that he had set aside for him over 15 years, his part of the business, which was, they had all these legitimate businesses, so they were making tens of millions of dollars. And he said, I just donated it. And anyways, it's a good book, but that's going on in my book right now. I know my imagination is pretty wild. Trust me. That's
good. You need imagination to write books.
Well, that's the thing. Like with the last week you asked about those haters who don't believe in my life.
Oh yeah, right. I remember that.
And I'm like, dude, if I was going to make up a life like a legend, I would make myself much more than a 2-bit scumbag, who knew a couple of mob guys when I was young. I'm saying all I did was know a couple old mob guys who were friends with my grandpa and my uncles and stuff, and I did some work for them. But that's it. I was a scumbag. I was a loser. I never made a lot of money. I was never big time. I was never in the mob. So if I was gonna, as a writer, I have this imagination. I would certainly create a legend for myself that was more interesting than that. But anyways, I just got back from New York. I think last week I told you I was going to New York.
Yeah, right.
Yes. What happened?
Well, that was fascinating too. So I had flown out to New York. They put me up in a real nice hotel. Paid me a couple $100, but it was cool because I got to have first day I had dinner with Larry Mazza and his family. If you don't know who Larry Mazza is, Google him up. He's a famous guy. He's an ex-Colombo crime family hitman. He's got a book called The Life, and his book The Life is being made into a TV series by Terry Winters, who made Boardwalk Empire, and I think he was involved in Sopranos, and so it's a big deal. And I'd known Larry for like 7 years. He's a good friend. And so he took me out to dinner with his brother, sister. That's nice. And somebody invites you out with them for their family to hang out with their family. So we ate at a famous restaurant called Patsy's in Manhattan, right by our hotel, like freaking half a block away. And it's famous because Frank Sinatra, there's a Frank Sinatra room, like a back room there. And Larry was telling me the story. I put this on my YouTube. I recorded it. And Larry was telling us how at one point the New York Yankees had just won the World Series, and they were there celebrating in the back room, right? And all of a sudden they get a call. Frank Sinatra's on his way. He wants the room. So they go in there and tell the Yankees, listen, you guys, I'm sorry, but Frank's coming. You guys got to get out of the VIP room. And they're like, are you kidding me? We're the Yankees. We just won the freaking World Series. You're kicking us out of the. He's like, it's Frank Sinatra. There's nothing I can do. So Sinatra walks in and takes over the room. And then another night, because Larry knows the owner. The owner came over to our table and, like, you know, said hello and whatever. He comped our meal. And so there's another one where Sammy Davis and Frank Sinatra booked the room together on the same night, right? Because this is how big a place this was. And Sinatra was like, oh, if it's Sammy, let him have the room. But I'm like, they're boys, you know, so they probably weren't beefed out over it. But that was a fun time. And then the next night, you know, that was fun getting to hear the history of that cool restaurant, and the food was good too. And then the next night I got interviewed the next day by James English, which is a really cool. He's a big podcast here in the UK. He got like 600,000 subscribers just on his YouTube.
Right.
And then the next day, John A-Light showed up. Do you know who John A-Light is?
I have not heard the name.
John A-Light is a kind of a famous, very controversial figure who was he was with the John Gotti crew, right? He was an Albanian guy who was tight with John Gotti's son. And A-Light was famous for being violent. He killed a bunch of guys. He shot a bunch of guys. He beat a bunch of guys. He was a violent guy, a big cocaine dealer. And he was part of Gotti's crew, right? And now a lot of people, you know, because he took the stand and testified. He didn't cooperate because like 60 different people tried to pin him a bunch of murders on him and all this stuff. And so he had to cooperate to defend himself. You know, he had to be like, yo, that's not true. And so a lot of people call him a liar. They call it, you know, but he's not, bro. The guy's he's a legitimate tough guy. I've been around guys like him before.
Alan, who interviewed you in New York?
James English.
James English. Okay.
Yeah, I think his show is called Anything Goes with James English. Really nice guy, British podcaster. And so we were all there. I got Larry on the show. I got Tim McBride there on the show too. Tim McBride is the biggest weed smuggler in American history. He was bringing in 40 to 70 tons a week. Tons.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. He was just offloading them and bringing them to stash houses and then kind of just offloading them and then driving them to wherever. But he was, you know, just like semi-trailers filled with this stuff every day. And so anyways, I got him on the show too. I told James, I'm like, I got a couple good guests for you. And he said, yeah. So he flew out Tim McBride, Larry Mazza. And so we all got to hang out. I got, you know, Tim McBride's a pretty famous dude, like in the weed market. He has his own weed brand and stuff. And I mean, this guy was a huge weed smuggler, man. And I got to hang out with him. I got to hang out one night. We went out for drinks and dinner with A-Light and Larry Mazza and his wife. And A-Light ends up showing up with some girl shows up, some beautiful young girl, right? And then he's like, and then Larry and his wife had to leave. And so we're at the bar, and then A-Light's like, listen, I got to go meet my son or something like that. And he's like, so he leaves me there with this young girl, this beautiful young girl at the bar. And I'm like, I can't be at the bar with some beautiful young girl. I mean, this is bad luck. You know, if somebody was to take a picture, my wife would see it, whatever. But I was a gentleman, so I said, I'll stick around long enough for you to call it Uber, you know, and pick you up and get out of here. But I'm not going to sit here and have drinks with some young girl. I'm married, you know what I'm saying? It just wasn't something I was comfortable to doing, but still it was a great time. And I walked around. I went down to Times Square, walked around. It was the interesting thing is I'd lived in New York before. When I was younger, when I was 21 years old, I lived in New York for, I don't know, a year and a half. And it was weird because when I was living in New York, I was working with some mafia guys, right? And one of them that I was doing was this textile scam where we smashed a hole in the wall of this big warehouse that was loaded with textiles, like literally millions of dollars worth of textiles. And like the place didn't have security. It was an old place. They hadn't even been in it in years, you know? So I just smashed a hole in the wall with a sledgehammer in the alley behind, and then was throwing it out. I bagged the stuff up, and I would take it down to the garment district in Manhattan, and I'd sell it. I'd pay like a car service guy would pull up. I'd order up a van or a truck or a van or whatever, or station wagon, and they'd pull up. I go, I need you to go behind Cherry Hill Textile, and they'd pull up, And the guy would go, oh, no, I can't, some Dominican dude. I said, listen, I'll give you an extra $75, man. He'd be like, okay, hurry up. We'd load it all up in the thing, and then we'd go to the textile place. And in the garment district, there's like 50 textile places, merchants, all in a row in like 3-4 blocks. And I just walk in like, do you want this? Do you want this? And they would be like, yeah, I'll take that. I'll take that. I take that. And I'd make like $800 in like a day. And then I'd just be like, what am I going to do now? So I just wander around Manhattan, like the Upper East Side of Manhattan. I go down the Times Square. I went around down by Wall Street. I just walking around, observing people. If I got hungry, I'd eat. And it might get late, 9, 10 o'clock at night. I go to hit a nightclub. I'm hitting on every girl I see. It was just a trip being there alone. Didn't have any friends or family. And I'm out there just walking around New York.
That is a huge city to live in if you're living alone. That's a huge city to live in.
It is a huge city, but in one way it's not, in one way it is. So one way, like when I was flying out of there, I got a great video of like was flying over Manhattan, and it looks small. It's just this island. It doesn't even look like it's that big. Of course, when you're down in there, it's immense. But on the other hand, because of the subway, you can get anywhere pretty fast. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Dude, so you could jump on the subway and be where I lived in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, and it's probably about a 25-30 minute subway ride because I was way out there. But if you're in Manhattan, you could jump on a subway and be in Wall Street from Harlem in 5 minutes. You know what I'm saying? Just the subways are impressive. But I didn't go on a subway because I was scared. I'm not going to lie. I'm not comfortable in those environments. I'm just saying a lot of people don't realize in that environment, I'm very scared and nervous. I think I told you how when I was a couple of weeks ago, I was on a bus at a bus station and some guy was acting weird with me. I had this big hunting knife in my bag and I'm holding it. I thought I was going to have to kill this guy. And I just, in the city with all these people and I'm looking around, this is the truth. I'm like, people don't realize there's bad guys around all over the freaking place. I know because I used to be a bad guy. So I used to be walking among the people just like this. I look just like everybody. I'd even wear a shirt and tie or a suit. So I looked like I was I was a gangster looking to rob motherfuckers, I mean, one time these black dudes pulled me in an alley to sell me some jewelry. I got a shirt and tie on. They got some jewelry. I pull a pistol out, tell them to lay on the ground and take the jewelry, and then I just turn around and run off. They're looking at me like, "Oh,
thank you."
Yeah, thank you, exactly. And so I robbed the jewelry store when I was in New York, which is a funny story, man. I paid these crackheads. They had a van. I said, wait around the corner, leave the door open, and I'll give you one piece of jewelry from the store. And they had to buzz you in and out of the place. And these Asian people owned it. And I bought some jewelry there. So I go in there and I got this like board with like 20 chains, these big gold rope chains, right? And I'm looking at them. I'm just waiting for somebody to go in or out because the door is 5 feet away and they got a buzz and they let you in or out. All of a sudden, they hit the door and somebody comes walking in. As soon as they come walking in, bang, I grab all these chains and I go running out the door. They jump over the counter and chase me, but I'm super fast. I was really athletic at the time. I was playing football. So I come running around the corner and jump in the van. They peel off and I got all these chains. I got about $10,000 worth of gold. And I give them a nice chain, a chain that's probably worth $600-800. I said, here you go. That's for, driving. And it was a chick and a dude, and the dude had a gun, but he knew I had a gun too. So and I knew he didn't like me. And the girl was a really pretty black girl, could sing really well, but they smoked crack. It was really weird. But they said, you're going to give me more. You got to give us more. You're going to give us more of that score. I'm like, I'm not giving you more. I told you I was going to give you one piece. I gave you one piece. That's it. They're like, no, you're going to give us more. I'm like, I'm not giving you, nothing. I ain't giving you shit. That's it. So when they stop at the next light, I just open the van door and I step out and I just start walking. And I end up walking into this Nike place. It's a Nike headquarters or Foot Locker, I think it was. And I walk in and I'm like looking at the shoes a little bit. This place is busy. This is Manhattan. And all of a sudden the chick comes walking in with a baseball bat. She got no shoes on. The chick, not the dude. The chick has got a baseball bat. And she comes walking up to me loud as hell. She goes, you're going to give us more. You're going to give us more. And this is when I pulled the Detroit card. And I stepped right in front of her. I said, listen, B word. I don't like saying the word. I said, listen, B word. I said, you got the wrong mother effer, man. I'm not that guy. You swing that bat and I'll take that bat and smash your freaking head in. I said, I'm from Detroit. I'm not playing no games with you. You swing that bat, I'm going to take it and smash your head in. Get the fuck out of here. And she could see in my eyes I was serious. Like she realized that you're dealing with a gangster who, you're not just some punk ass, kid. Right. Beat it. And she turned around and walked out. But it's kind of a funny story. I did a lot of crazy stuff in New York, man, for these mob guys. Like this crazy stuff. We extorted a bunch of Jamaican like Rastafarians. into selling our weed. They were selling their own weed out of these head shops on Knickerbocker Avenue. And we basically went in there and said,
wow.
you're going to sell our weed
You
or no
muscled the
weed.
Rastafarians?
Yeah, it was crazy. We'd go in there. I went in there.
Dang.
I had somebody with a gun, and I went in there with a baseball bat. The first time was nice. I was like, listen, we'll sell you the weed at the same price you're getting it now. You're going to sell our weed. It's probably better weed. And they're like, no, man, we're good, man. You don't need no weed. I said, do you realize who we are? And I explained it's the mafia. And they're like, no, we're good, man. We're good, man. So I come back in there with a baseball bat. My buddy's got a shotgun, and Vince was his name. And I started smashing the place up with a baseball bat and said, the next time I come in here, bro, it's going to be a bullet in your head. So here's the deal. We're going to do business or you ain't going to do no business. And so they did. They ended up doing it. And but another time they tried to extort.
Is that where it came at? There's no business like show business?
Yeah, show them. Exactly. Show them the business.
Show me.
Hey,
we're running out of time, Alan.
Yeah. But tell us the website for your merchandise.
Well, you can find everything that I do at my website, gunnerdetroit.com, Gunner Detroit.com. And there's links to my apparel company. I own Arthing Apparel, which you can find at arthingapparel.com. We do everything from hats and hoodies and jackets and swag, whatever. And then in my books, also at my website, you can click the link there. It's an audio book. Also a link to my radio show. It's called Our Thing on 1010 The King out of Atlanta. We broadcast on Spotify and all the major platforms too. So, you can check out everything I do at Gunner Detroit, and I hope you check out my books. They're being called The Next Godfather. People say I wrote The Next Godfather.
Which is a great Christmas gift.
You're fascinating. Yeah. That's all I have to say. You're just absolutely fascinating, Alan.
It's always a pleasure to have you on the program, Gunner, and we want to thank you so much. We look forward to the next time, which will be real soon. Take care.
Thank you. You guys have a great day.
You too.
You too.
Right.
Alan Gunner Lindbloom here on the Awake Nation. I've lived such a boring life compared to this. I mean, I really have nothing. Alan's
like that. Just amazing, man. He's really is.
Now, have you ever learned anything and then found out later it was completely useless to have this knowledge?
Maybe.
Okay, Reddit asked its visitors, what is that one thing that you have invested thousands of hours working on it, and now it's useless? Some of the responses were as follows. Number one, naming all the files in my MP3 music collection. Hundreds of thousands of songs, all named in the same format with album art, and now we have Spotify. Somebody said Taekwondo. It took a freshman wrestler to show me how useless karate was. One said, I have a friend who spent a couple of years becoming fluent in Klingon.
Okay.
I guess there really is a language, Klingon.
Yes, there is.
World of Warcraft. That's another game. One guy said, I practiced piano for hours every day for 15 years. Performed in multiple countries, originally went to college for it, and now I have arthritis.
Oh boy.
In the beginning of the internet, I spent an insane amount of time creating a very comprehensive website on cats, history, breeds, genetics, care, everything. It was located on one of those free domain hosting sites. After a few years of being up, I got an email from the domain provider who said it was accidentally erased from their server.
Oh, wow.
That's not good. Let's see what else. A couple of my horse, boarding fees, vets, TAC, competition fees. Now he's 27 and retired. I love him to death, but all he does is eat and crap. And then studying Japanese when I lived there. Just completely useless outside of Japan. One said, I spent 3 years scanning all my family's photos dating back to the 1880s. Organizing them in chronological order was a massive project. After they were all safely downloaded in order on my iMac, I received notice of a computer update. Of course, I did the update. The next time I checked my photos, they were all scrambled out of order.
Ew.
Oh, man. Well, I guess the bottom line is nothing is wasted. Everything you've ever learned will come back to help you later in life, except for maybe that thumbtack dinosaur egg thing. That was kind of stupid. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the Awake Nation. Please join us this evening by 6 p.m. Eastern Time for an edition of the Awake Nation News. You'll find that on our YouTube channel, The Awake Nation News, and on our news website, theawakenation.com. We will be back tomorrow with another edition of the Awake Nation TV show on our Rumble channel, the David Zublick channel, and at awakenation.tv. In the meantime, we are out of time, so we are out of here. Don't forget, until midnight Mountain Time tonight, buy one, get one free from Numi, theawakenation.numi.com. Zublick out.
Shepard out.
Goodbye for today from the Awake Nation, with co-host David Zublick and Penny Shepard. We invite you to join us live on Rumble and at awakenation.tv, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. to 12 noon Eastern. Join us for the Awake Nation News, a 30-minute quick shot of truth with a shot of espresso, 8 a.m. to 8:30 Central, 9 a.m. to 9:30 Eastern, followed by 5 sets of 30-minute interviews with influencers who defy the mainstream narrative. The Awake Nation, the truth with a shot of espresso. Please join us on YouTube at The Awake Nation News for an additional 30 minutes of breaking news, posting Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Central and 6 p.m. Eastern. On behalf of the Awake Nation, with co-hosts David Zublick and Penny L.A. Shepard, we humbly thank our Dark Outpost and Awake Nation family. We thank you for watching the Awake Nation and ask you to join us again each and every weekday, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. to 12 noon Eastern. Ship doo 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 doo, yeah. Ship doo 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 doo. Ship doo 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 doo, yeah.